All right. Good evening. Thanks to the new clock, I actually know what day it is too. So we're glad you're here. We're going to call to order the study session for Tuesday, February the 4th. Before we start, I'm going to open with a moment of silence followed by a pledge to our flag. If you'd like to join us, feel free to do so. Thank you. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, call to order the February 4th, 2025 study session for the Sumner County Board of Education. First item on the agenda is the Internal School Funds Annual Financial Report for this year end June 30th, 2024.
All right, we'll have.
I think we've got a presentation here.
Good evening. Thank you for having me here to present the, as you mentioned, the Internal School Funds Audit for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2024. We issued our report dated December 13, 2024. I'm happy to report we issued an unmodified opinion, which that's auditor speak for a clean opinion, a good opinion, which is what you want, meaning there were no modifications, no major issues, anything of that nature. Just a few. We also issued an opinion on internal control, which was also a clean opinion, no material weaknesses or anything of that nature. A few numbers: total fund balance for the internal school funds was just over $8 million. That's all the combined internal school funds rolled into one. That's up about $326,000 from the prior fiscal year. Revenues were a little over 15 million, I think 15.3. Expenditures were just under 15 million. They were both down slightly, but they kind of mirror each other. Money that's taken in is spent out on the students. That's the nature of the internal school funds. But again, even though those were slightly down, it still resulted in an increase of a little over 300,000 in your fund balance. And that's it. Like I said, it was a clean audit. I'm thankful for the opportunity to work with you guys, your finance department, internal audit department, make it. They pretend like they like to have us there, and it's really nice to have that team. No, we really tried. Do you guys have any questions for me? Anything?
Yeah, just one, and this may be Dr. Langford, and I'll jump over to Mr. Lancaster just a second. Can you explain the reason for the internal audit? I know we've got some newer board members on staff, but can you explain the reason why and the controls we have in the place and what it kind of helps us prevent, big picture wise?
Yeah, I think that, Amanda, jump in here if I miss anything. I think, we think a lot of times of the audit of the school system as a whole and the money that's spent in and out of the central office, which we are also audited, but there's a significant amount of money that moves through each individual school. And it's collected in cash, it's collected at games, it's collected for fundraisers. There are 1,000 different ways that money's collected, everything from selling snacks to tickets to lockers to senior, there's a million different things that schools collect. And so, to make sure that money is not misused, and I would say over the course of my lifetime in Sumner County Schools, the improvement that's been made, we have Dia Hall, our supervisor auditor extraordinaire back there. And I think when we first started, there was a perception because we didn't always do things the way we do things now, say 15, 20 years ago. And so I would say when Dia first started, it was hard for her because it was like something was being done to schools where I think everybody now understands, hey, this is to protect us. These rules are good. They make sure that we're spending and accounting for every penny. There's not a penny that goes through a school that's not accounted for, like 5 or 6 times to make sure it's being spent properly. And they do, so your bookkeepers and the individual schools and the principal are the front line to make sure that everything's done well. And I think it's just the fact that, I mean, if you think too, for this audit to be as clean as it is, as good as it is, when you think of, you know, the thousands of people that touch money in a school, and for it to be done, like, you know, you think like on a Friday night football game, if you sell 4,000 tickets, that's, each of those tickets is counted for. You got to match up the ticket stubs and everything else. And so just our folks do, Dia does a great job, her team does. She's a very small team to do the work that they do. But they do a tremendous job taking care of our schools, and then our schools do a tremendous job of, you know, and I mean, I'll say like, you know, I would say, so I became a principal in 2014. It was still relatively new that money got pushed to the schools and the quantities that we send out. We try to send a significant amount of instructional money out to the schools. When I got there, Mr. Cordell needed to buy technology, but he didn't know what to buy, so he saved money so the next person would be able to do it. And I can remember coming to my first budget meeting and Ms. Brown telling me, hey, we want you to spend this money this year for the kids. We're going to replenish it for next year. It took a couple of years to get that to where everybody understood that. And I think that's one thing that's exciting for me, is to see that those numbers, the income, the revenue, and the expenditures are moving at about the same place, because it means we're spending the money on kids, and that's a big deal. So did I get everything pretty well, Amanda?
Yeah, and I would just say too that they provide a tremendous amount of bookkeeper support within our buildings. And we've talked to other districts, and other districts have actually called us trying to set up an department similar to ours. And he can kind of attest that it's not as really that this kind of support we have is not always typical. And they train our bookkeepers. They go in, you know, we have 50 schools, and so at any given point in time, there's someone sick, there's someone out, there's someone doing an extra fundraiser, and our team goes in, fills in if a bookkeeper is on FMLA, fills in if a bookkeeper is just sick for the day, needs additional support. They take calls all day long from our schools on, hey, this is an unusual situation, how do I do this right? And we have seen the amount of theft within our school buildings go down over the years. We haven't had, knock on wood, anything in a significant amount of time, and that is you know, a test to their hard work working with those bookkeepers and ensuring that we have really competent staff.
And I would argue now it's even more important, because, you know, used to you always worried about theft because you were handling small bills. Now with, you know, with cybersecurity and phishing schemes and things like that are very easy to catch people, our schools have really done a great job of making sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah, our bookkeepers do a phenomenal job, and they do a phenomenal job in supporting those in our schools, and they have a really, really close working relationship. So, and we want to be a partner with those bookkeepers, and so they know they can call us, because if they feel like they can call us and get the right answers, then that's just making everything better. So more of a real support there, not just like a kind of catch a auditor type thing. It's not really our role, though we do audit those books too, along with, yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Lancaster?
Yeah, this is, like I say, this is always a good audit to see when it's always the same thing that we get caught on every year, because you know, the sales tax is just
It's weird.
it's the hardest thing for
It happens less though now.
it's just
Yeah, I will say, and I think this is our third audit that we've issued for you guys, and when we had our exit meeting, every year it's gotten better and better, the number of instances. I mean, she mentioned, 50 schools, so 50 different sets of internal school fund books, and then the level of transactions. You think about the middle schools and high schools, you know, and we're reviewing stuff on a sample basis, and those things happen, you know, and just to speak on the way those are reported, they're reported as significant deficiencies, but that's really like the lowest level of reportable finding. So it's something that's still in there, but it's not like a material weakness would be something that could affect your audit opinion, like I mentioned. So that significant deficiency is like that is a step down. But as I mentioned, over the 3 years that we've done it, those instances have been less and less, the number of those deficiencies, and then the number of schools that are hit on each one.
And the main thing I'd say is, you know, the support organizations that work with our bookkeepers are great. And they, you know, usually know what they're doing and have a good understanding of the rules. But then you got people in the support organizations that are lots of times turned over every year because new volunteers are coming on, and just to keep this level of understanding of the correct way to do things and account for things and everything else takes a lot of work. Ms. Hall back there, she's probably a person that a lot of the PTOs are like, oh, I gotta make sure I don't get in trouble with Dia, but she keeps it very very organized and provides a great amount of training. Every time we have a new person come on, I'm like, hey, just go to that training. That way we don't get on the sales tax issue. So I appreciate it. I appreciate the work that team does.
Well, just to echo what they both said, having that support is so huge, and the fact that all the bookkeepers are on the same page doing the same thing, and that's a testament to their department. We audit over 20 different school systems, the internal school funds books, so we see, and it's from a 3-school district to, if you're not the largest, you're tied for the largest with what we do. And the districts that don't have that support, especially, I don't think there's maybe but one more that has an internal audit department, but not having that support, all the bookkeepers are operating independently, and it's just, it kind of has the opportunity for a disaster to happen when it comes to internal control and those audit issues. But on the flip side, having the department and having the support, and you look at one school and you know what you're gonna, you kind of know what you're gonna see because they're all on the same page, they're all doing the same thing. So many of the procedures and forms are uniform across the district, and that's just a huge testament to the staff and the department here.
Any other questions? All right, well, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You have a good night.
All right, next item is the Transportation Department presentation.
All right, we're really excited to have our transportation department tonight, and I'll introduce Tracy to you, and then she's going to share a presentation, introduce her team. Immediately after they get done, they are going to head out because they start their workday at 3:30 and they finished up about half an hour ago. So this is like past midnight. And I'm excited for you to get to meet Tracy for the first time officially. I know many of you know Tracy because she's actively engaged in everything in Sumner County, and honestly, like a big award for her that we need honor for was just inducted to the Gallatin High School Athletic Hall of Fame. So, she is now officially the most athletic. She's now officially the most athletic assistant director.
He said that today.
Once I moved up, Amanda took the title, and now it's gone to Tracy. So,
Never had the titles back.
Tracy was born and raised in Gallatin. She started in August 1992 with Sumner County Schools as a bus driver. She'd been working in daycare for 15 years, so she continued that for a long time during the day between routes. She took a job at Beach High School working as a job coach in special needs classes, taking students to work. She took a special needs route in Gallatin, so she left Beach and came to Gallatin, subbing at all the schools. Eventually, she took a full-time position washing dishes at the old Rucker Stewart. She left Rucker Stewart for a position as a job coach at Gallatin High School, and later she was offered a job in the special needs department working with autistic students, doing one-to-ones with students in schools all over the county. In 2005, she was offered a position as an area supervisor. In 2009, Mr. Rigsby retired and offered her a position as operations manager to work with Clint Barnes. And she has loved every job she's done in Sumner County Schools, and she loves the transportation team. And let me just say, if you want to see servant leader, selfless servant, whatever you want to call her or say, but someone that has done every job in the school system exceptionally well, and it's a great joy to see her now sit as director of the transportation department, because there's never anyone that will love our bus drivers, love our staff, love our kids more than Tracy. And so, Tracy, thank you for everything that you do. And we're looking forward.
All that.
And we're looking forward to your presentation tonight.
All right. It is nice to meet all of you. I think I've met Miss Tammy. I know Andy's family. I want to, first of all, okay, I'm pointing here, I'm not working.
There it
Oh,
is.
thanks. Okay. It's still not turning on. It went one time.
Does it have red or green on the side?
It's red. Well, I thought that's what I had, sorry. I got you. All right. This is one of our drivers took this picture, so I personally thought that would be a great way to open up. Our department consists of employees who have a heart for our students and are very dedicated to their safety and the well-being. Again, this was one of the pictures of one of those beautiful afternoons. The driver took it, she sent it to me, and I thought that would be a great way to start. Now I'd like for you to meet our frontline team of people. Okay, I'm gonna let them introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Dobby Andrew. I'm the station camp and Hendersonville supervisor. I've been with Sumner County Schools for 39 years. I started by washing pots and pans in Knoxdaw's cafeteria.
I'm Donnie Gilliland. I've been with Sumner County 19 years, and I supervise Gallatin, Bethpage, and Castellan Springs.
Okay.
I'm Phyllis Nash. I have been with Sumner County for 20 years now and supervise White House, Beach Schools, and the Liberty Creek Schools.
I'm Julie Wright. I've been with Sumner County since 2005. I started out driving a bus in 7 at White House High School and White House Middle School, grew up there. I've been with the county 20 years going on, and I'm the supervisor for Portland and Westmoreland.
The county is big enough that we have to have a different person in every area, okay? It's just that opened up. All right, so then besides these 4 great people that we have the behind the scenes people, all right? We've got 4 people in our routing department. We have a video GPS technician, a receptionist, a secretary, a fleet operations manager. We have mechanics, a parts man, an operations worker who takes care of washing buses when they come in for service, and he also runs our DEF truck. We have 233 buses, including spares. We have 185 buses running routes every day. So at any given time, during the day, morning and afternoon, there's 185 buses running. 28 of those are special needs, and that includes TSB and TSD. That's Tennessee School for the Blind and Tennessee School for the Deaf. In the morning and the afternoons combined, we run 1,100 routes per day. We make 14,530 stops per day. We run 9,171 miles per day. So in a year, we're putting in school year only, that's not including field trips and midday preschool runs, we run 1,650,780 miles per school year. We have buses that run, I don't think people understand that, one bus may run 4 runs in the morning, 4 in the afternoon. That's 8 runs that it's done that day. We transport approximately 18,930 students. We transport 8 high schools, 12 middle schools, 27 elementary, R.T. Fisher, the alternative school, Tennessee School for the Blind and the Deaf. And this is Sumner County schools that go down to Stewart's Ferry Pike, and we take them morning and afternoon, we pick them up. Okay, that's a trip to Nashville twice a day. We also transport McKinney-Vento, that's our homeless students. Those are students who have been displaced. We work with, thank you, Metro if they're in Metro, but we have a liaison here, Keisha and her team, and we work and we all get that together and we meet at the line. We try not to go into their county, they meet us at a line somewhere. We have 200 employees, including drivers, attendants, and substitutes. We have 4 drivers with 40 years of service. We have hired 5 drivers and attendants. If you'd like a job, we'll train you. That's since summer of 24. All right. Every year, I am sorry, I've got to have a bottle of water. Sorry. All right. All buses go through state inspections yearly. Once they hit 15 years old, they go through 2 inspections a year. State inspections are done by a Tennessee State Trooper. He comes out to our bus garage and he comes in and he does all of the following. On the outside of the bus, he's checking the lights, which includes your 8-way system, that's your pickup and drop-off lights for the kids, including the stop sign and the cross arm out in the front, the reflective tape around the windows, and any body damage. On the inside, they're checking all the safety equipment, the emergency exits, including the buzzers, the seats and windows and things such as that. And then they get under the bus, literally under the bus with a creeper, and they check the underneath. They check the brakes, the tie rods, the tie rod ends, drive lines, exhaust, and other things under there. The bus stays in service for 18 years or 200,000 miles. Then they're stripped. We strip the radios out, fire extinguishers, triangles, things that we could use on another bus. So I threw a couple of pictures in here of the guys working. They're fixing a hatch, and I'm not sure what he's doing over on the right. I want to talk to you about our driver training, because driver training is a big thing for us, and it's very detailed. It's very in-depth, more so now than it ever was when any of us started. The supervisors actually do all of their interviewing and all of their training for their areas, because they're the person that's going to be dealing with that driver the whole time. So they see them from beginning to end before they get on a bus. Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration in 2022, they started entry-level driver training. That is for school bus drivers and anyone driving a commercial vehicle. So anyone driving a vehicle over 26,000 pounds has to enter the entry-level driver training program somewhere. All right, we are fortunate enough that we are in the training provider registry. So if anyone goes to FMCSA's trainer provider registry, we're in it. But we only train people who will drive a bus for us. All training is done in-house, from the CDL book all the way to the road. We meet the requirements of FMCSA. We meet the required guidelines of Sumner County Schools. We had a training already in place, and then when FMCSA come out with ELDT, we combine our training and their training so that we know the drivers are getting plenty and more. Once a trainee has met all the requirements, which also includes 24 hours behind the wheel with them, they take them out on the road, they take them on back roads, subdivisions, wherever they need to take them, which would be in their areas. Then they tell us that they're ready, and then they're actually going to get their CDL license in-house, because we can do that at the shop as well, because we have a certified tester as well. We schedule them, and then they do their skills test out in the, like I said, and on the road. Once they have gotten their CDLs, their training does not stop. They will do a yearly DOT physical. They have to do training in Infinity, which is a state program. They go in, that's videos. It may be reading documents, but more videos than anything. And they take a test after each video. Then there is yearly state training that we do in our building. It is all of us. We put a training together. They come, we do it for a week. And so everyone enters that or comes to that. And then we do yearly CPR and first aid. And then I just put some random pictures in here of them doing their training. The one on the bottom right was a back to school meeting that we did. And whoop, the fun stuff, if you see at the top, we put a bus in the parade every year. You probably don't know that it's a bus, because sometimes it's a doghouse, and it was a train one year, and so they do a really good job of doing it. All right, when we take some of those buses out of service, we've done a couple of, we had people with some really good ideas, okay? It wasn't me. We had some people with really good ideas. So we have a remote control bus called Buster the Bus. All right, he goes into the schools and he teaches kindergarten kids all about schools bus safety. All right, we had a driver with an idea. Well, we've got kids that need coats and jackets and things of that such. So she wanted to turn the bus into a closet, and she named it Buster's Closet. We take donations. Here's Buster the Bus himself. He goes to all the schools. They're very involved when they go. The kids come up, they cross in front of the bus, they talk to about the footage in front, how far walk out and things like that. And then the bus we took out of service, Buster's Closet, it had met its limit of age and mileage. So we turned it into the closet. And if you look on the bottom, you can see where it is literally a closet. It's got a lot of if you see the containers on the bottom, those were jackets people donated. They take them out. If the little girl you see came to get a coat and then just stayed and helped us hang up coats. So, all right. Then we took another bus that went out of service. and we partnered with Lisa's coordinated school health team, and we've done an activity bus. That is a bus wrapped. The top picture is when they were wrapping it, and the bottom, middle, and the top right are completed. And I've got one more too. But on the left and the right, you'll see the things that are inside the bus. Those are things that some of the schools couldn't afford to get or that they would like to have used. So they just collected it all, put it on a bus, and it goes to a school and it stays. We move it, it'll sit there for a week, then move it to another school, and then move it to another school. So it goes all over the county. Who are our drivers? They are moms and dads that need great benefits for their family because we've got great insurance benefits. We have retirees. We have people looking for change. We have got nurses, people who have come out of nursing. We've had people come out of chiropractic practice of their own that come out to drive for us. We have custodians, teachers, principals, and assistance principals now are driving for us. And all of these people love kids. All of them love kids. All right. And this I wanted to share because this is one of our Portland High School students. We have a friendship, so he thought he would make us a recruiting poster to take places. So he made this poster for us, so I'll just showing that off. All right, we're done. Thank you.
All right, I've got a couple questions, Mr. Hollis.
Yes, my kids were bus riders, went to Jack Anderson, loved the bus drivers, always great people. Couple of questions. First one, do you all still use, I think, Here Comes the Bus app? I know I've talked with several parents that have divorced parents who have multiple home addresses, that there are challenges with that. I don't know, I mean, it seems like in today's world of programming and stuff, it should be a simple fix. I don't know.
It should be, but it hasn't been so far, but it's not something we've ignored. We're trying with the company that does that.
Okay, excellent. And then I was just curious too, I know you all do all the hiring and scheduling. Well, how do you handle absences? What if someone calls in sick the night before? People just pick up the extra routes?
We have some subs, not many, and then it's us. We drive.
Okay.
Anything we need to do to cover buses. I mean, we're gonna get them to school. We don't, I know there are counties that just call off the bus route. We don't do that. We'll get them to school.
All right, thank you. Good job.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Tracy, tell me about the hiring process. Do you make the final decision on the hire? How many steps involved?
They go through an interview with the supervisors.
Okay.
And like I said, they know who they're gonna work with, they know who they can, and I trust their judgment because we've all been doing it long enough. And they'll go through the background check just like anyone else who would become an employee of Sumner County Schools, and then they go through the training. But they've gotta get through the background check, and the personalities have to match, just like hiring anybody else. But there's a lot of training, and sometimes that's why we lose people, because they think they're gonna come in today and drive a bus next week, and it doesn't work like that. There's a lot of training involved.
What is that time? The training?
It depends on the person.
Okay.
The more you study, the better you're gonna do when you go take the written test at the DMV, because that's the only time you go down there is to take the written test. It's in a computer, but they call them written tests.
Okay.
And those 4 tests have to be passed before we can move forward with you. And sometimes they get frustrated with that, or they get into the other, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is taking forever. But it does if you're gonna do it right. So it could take from 2 weeks to a month.
Gotcha. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I just wanted, I'm sorry.
Just one question.
Ms. Barnes?
Thank you to you and your team for your service and what you do every day. But what's your greatest challenge that you're facing right now as a
We need
department?
drivers.
It's still drivers?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And attendance.
Yeah, and attendance, but we need drivers more because we need to be able to put some more routes back on the road.
Okay. Now, how many open positions do you have right now?
Right now, probably 20.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
I can train you if you want to.
I'll be a rider. I don't know about a driver, but a rider.
She was so desperate the other day, she said I should get my CDL, which is not a good idea, but,
We're good trainers though.
but she, but Jesus take the wheel. Let me just say, just a couple things to really brag on them. One, if you think about 1,100 and something routes a day, that's 270 that each one of them supervises, or that are route that they supervise and that our routers route. It's amazing the amount of what they're able to do. And in COVID, when we were down somewhere around 40 to 50 bus drivers at one point, and had a significant number of drivers out. We never once canceled a route like other counties sometimes do. And that's a testament to the work that they do, and just making sure, you know, you're talking somewhere around 23,000 kids a day on a bus in some capacity. And the fact that they get them all home safely and care about them from the time they pick them up to the time they drop them off and even beyond. You know, I happened to be over there one of the mornings it was so cold, and Kevin, who's not here tonight, Kevin was there. He had on bib overalls and a white t-shirt. It wasn't 4 degrees inside the shop, but it was about 14. It was pretty cold, but he was ready to go, and that's just, you know, that's just the way that they are. They just, any challenge that they face, they take on and knock out. And even in anticipation of the cold weather, they were out at Walmart in Gallatin passing out coats to kids that needed coats, because they really.
Those were some very dedicated drivers. That was their idea. I
Mhm.
want to take credit for something they did. They
Yeah.
were all over it.
Yeah, and that's you know, Tracy's heart that you heard in her team's heart, you see with every one of our drivers and our team. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you for the work that you do each day. It's really amazing.
And I'll just add to that, growing up in Gallatin, I rode bus 228 with Miss Rosie most of my life.
I love Miss Rosie.
I had my kids, all my kids went to Union, so we always had somebody driving. But in January, my middle school kids and my high school son are now riding the bus, because my travel schedule, my wife, so they're riding the bus in the morning. They were scared to death the first day, although they rode them on field trips. They were afraid that they'd get the wrong spot, not cross the street the right way, everything else. And I asked how the first day went. It was great. And my oldest son said, I sat in the front because I was scared to walk further back. But he did say the only challenge is that because he's a high school student, riding the bus impacts his social life, because now he can't stand in front of the school and hang out with his friends for like 4 minutes before he walks inside. But he's adjusted, so told him I'm not worried about his social life. I just want him at school.
Mr. Daniels, they had a previous routing supervisor when I was assistant principal. I was down when they talking to him, and I told him that, you know, when I was growing up, I rode bus 80, and he looked at me for a second. He goes, "Wow," he goes, "we're in the 600s now on our buses."
We're in the 8s now.
Yeah.
A lot of buses. All right, next item on the agenda is maintenance department presentation.
Yeah, we have Mr. Andy Brown with us tonight, and if you're new, let me give you a little bit of an introduction to Mr. Brown. He is a graduate of White House High School, class of 1992. He graduated from Austin Peay State University with a Bachelor of Science degree, and then he co-owned a company with his brother, BKA General Contractors and Commercial Residential Contractors, a Nashville-based company. And then he was the director of field development for Response Team 1, and he worked across multiple states, across the country, coast to coast. That was a commercial and residential contracting firm. He was hired by Sumner County Schools in January 2017. He's married 30 years this coming December to his wife, Christy, back there. And he has 4 grown children, 2 boys and 2 girls. His son Wyatt's right out there. His daughter works at Millersville Elementary. And you know, Andy, I really thought about going back to the old yearbooks and find some pictures, but I didn't do it. But you know, I'll say this, because Andy was actually in my workout group when we were in high school when I was a senior. And I'll tell you, the same person that you see right now with Andy is exactly the same way he was when he was a freshman in high school. He's always had just the best heart for everybody around him. He comes to work every day happy and works hard from beginning to end. And that's something I think I've known you, Andy, since you were 14 years old. And never once have I seen you waver from that. So it's an honor to have you. We're looking forward for you to share the great work that our maintenance and operations team does.
Thank you. Well, there's just a few of you here now that have seen me and know me before. We got a lot of new people, and it's really nice to meet you. I'm glad I have the opportunity to tell you about what we do, because I think what we do and what we take care of is a big task, and all of my men do a phenomenal job at it. But when you look at the responsibilities that we've got 52 school buildings, anywhere from 75 years old to 1 year old, 6 support buildings, multiple sports buildings, and trust me when I say multiple, it's multiple different sports buildings. I can't count them all. we've got square footage somewhere about 6.4 million square footage that we take care of. So when you look at that and you think about it, if you guys have done anything like that, one of the first things you got to think about is how do you handle volume like that? Well, we try to lay it out. There's a plan to everything that we do. We've got a team with the administration at each school. We've got to enlist help at the schools, whether it be the custodians that may put something in for us to see, or nutrition workers that may give us a call. We've got to prioritize, because believe it or not, we get some things that are just not that important right then. They're important to the schools, but I've got things that maybe take precedence over those, so we have to prioritize. And then we'll circle back around and we'll get to that. We track everything, but one thing that I make sure that we do is we communicate. One of the best things that we do is we try to treat our schools, and I insist on it, like they're our customers. When we walk in, we see a principal, that's our customer. A teacher comes up and tells us something, we try to listen because that's our customer. They may be our equals as far as employment, but they're our customers right then. And what seems important to them, we've got to make sure that we communicate and we understand that it's important to them. And sometimes that's a hard thing to do, especially with all of my guys. But we do a really good job of that. But one thing I want everybody to understand is we're not a typical maintenance crew. Whatever you would think about as maintenance of buildings, that's typically not us. Most of the time when you look at a maintenance crew, you think of they're going to change the light bulbs, they're going to unclog a toilet, they're going to make sure that if there's a piece of trim that's loose, they're going to attach that back. A teacher's got a problem with the intercom, maybe they'll look at it and tap on it. That's just not us. That's just not us. We've got skilled tradesmen like you wouldn't understand in every aspect. We're going to talk about that here in just a minute. But all of our tradesmen are skilled. And that's what I want everybody to understand. They've all got industry certifications, be it State of Tennessee electrical license, to EPA certifications so we can take care of all the heating and air, to asbestos certifications to make sure that we can do our own abatement. We are certified in everything that we can get certified in. But the years of experience and industry knowledge is second to none. When I had my own business with my brother for all those years, if I could have brought all of these guys in to work for us, man, I wouldn't be here today. Let me just go ahead and tell you, because they can do it all. I can't wait to show you a few pictures of it. But as you can understand, and what we've seen, especially since COVID, hiring has been difficult. Okay? Last year we were able to raise that pay up. We're so very grateful for that. It tickles us to death that that came up, and that's helped me retain a lot of people. It's also helped me get some in. But as you can understand too, in the industry, a good heating and air person is making an awful lot of money. We have wonderful benefits. And sometimes we can show that and they'll see. Sometimes people don't understand. But what we try to practice is we bring in people that maybe don't have all those years of experience, and we try to apprentice them. And we have mentors, guys that work with them every day. They'll go out in teams and make sure that they learn how to do this. How do you take care of these units? How do you deal with three-phase electric? How do you take care of those things that could, one, if you touch them wrong, could kill you, or two, make classes uncomfortable? How do we take care of those things? So we use mentors and apprentices. But working to keep as much as we have in-house. Very seldom do I look and say, we've got to take this outside of our department. You know, I've got the budget for that in different lines that we'll pull from, but we always try to take care of it ourselves. You're going to see a little bit of that as we go along. But how does that benefit our district? Number one, you're going to see tremendous cost savings in everything that we do. Because if we were to have to put this out on the market and hire somebody for everything that breaks on all of these buildings, you would not believe how much that would cost. The fact that we can keep that in-house is tremendous. It gives a direct contact for all of the schools. They know who they can call. They don't have to worry about calling one person and then wondering who they're going to hire to come out and help them. They can contact different people, either my supervisors or myself. My phone is always on. One of the best stories we have is I had a principal call me several years ago, Mitch Flood. He was at Hawkins. He called and said, "Andy, I just got an alert that we don't have any power." This was at like 2:15 in the morning. So I answered the phone and I said, "Hey, Mitch, what's going on?" Was I asleep? Absolutely, I was asleep. But the last thing he wants to hear is, "Hey, what can I do to help you?" I said, "Hey, Mitch, what's happening? How can I help you?" He still talks about that today. We got it taken care of. We helped out. A car had hit a pole. We made good decisions. And Mitch is still like, "Were you not sleeping?" "Yeah, Mitch, I was sleeping." But, this is what we do. This is why we have a job. We're able to do extensive follow-up, emergency services. You would not believe the amount of emergency services that we perform. Mr. Daniels would probably understand a little bit more with the industry he's in, but we have a trailer that I've outfitted with air movers, dehumidifiers, antimicrobial that we can spray, blocking, everything that you can imagine, extraction machines, all of this. So when we do get that flood, a sprinkler breaks in a school, or a pipe ruptures, or heat and air goes, one of the water pipes goes everywhere, then we just grab that trailer and it's all hands on deck.
And I'll tell you, to see it firsthand, if you remember a couple years ago when the courthouse was under construction, it caught on fire. At the same time that the courthouse was on fire, we got a call. Mayor Brown told us that Howard Elementary was on fire. It turned out we had a Kleenex box that a fan burned out and sparked and caught the Kleenex. So the fire was really, really, really minor, but it triggered the sprinklers. And if you were ever concerned that the sprinklers in schools don't work, they work really well. They throw off lots and lots of water. And, Ms. Swafford and Mr. Spears were there with squeegees and everything they could to fight the water. And then Andy's team showed up like the cavalry. We ended up, I think we closed that next day because Howard started at 7:30. If that started at 8:30, we'd have gone to school. But they even had, in addition to cleaning up the water and everything, they had something that they put out that took that smell out from the drying fabric. And it was all out of that trailer. And we've had probably at least 5 or 6 incidents of something similar since then where that trailer has come in handy.
We use that trailer all the time. Sprinklers are our best friend. But asbestos, I've already mentioned it. We have crews that are trained in that. We're able to take care of that in small quantities. We could do bigger quantities, but it would take us too long. But if we're going to do a room and we know that that's in there, then we have the crews that are trained and certified, and we can do it in-house all ourselves. We keep up all those certifications for that. The emergency services, I touched on all of those different things. Part of what we do too for our schools, especially right now when the flu goes through, we've made sure that every school has a low volume fogger that we bought during COVID, or we've got them in our building too, plus barrels of the product that we can spray. So if it's going through your 5th grade hall and your 6th grade hall, we can go through there and fog both of those halls and go ahead and take care of everything that's in there at that point in time. It's going to settle on all the desks. It's going to kill any of those germs in a matter of minutes. And the product that we use is 100% botanical. So we can give you the safety data sheets on that, and it just says it's all botanical. And that makes the parents happy. But we also are able to keep the kids in school. That's the first thing I learned here, is no matter what, we got to keep the kids in school. So that's what we work hard for. We've got 72 men currently. I've got some openings, but I've got 72 men currently for all of the buildings. That includes our lawn care as well. Last school year, what we figured and we looked at was just over 13,000 work orders that we received for that year, which is a tremendous amount. We were able to complete over 12,700 of them. I know there's some out there that we haven't marked on our computer yet as complete, and I saw them, so I can honestly say over 12,700 taken care of. We get a lot of different things that are duplicates or whatnot, but we take care of those. We make sure that that the guys don't repeat those. That's all part of this as well. But what we tell everybody, and I've got it on the screen here, is out of that 13,388, man, thank you for the job security. Man, we appreciate it. We really do. But our departments, we've got electronics. I'll tell you about that. Plumbing, electrical, grounds and roofing, HVAC, carpentry, cabinetry, and locksmiths, and of course lawn care. One other one I didn't have on there, I guess you could call it a department, is we've got such an extensive warehouse, and I look forward to all of you folks seeing that. It looks like you've walked into a Home Depot or a Lowe's. But we've got guys that have to take care of that and manage all of our inventory. But electronics, what do they take care of? Electronics is all of our life safety, which means all of our fire panels, everything with that. They take care of all of our cameras, making sure that we put up or take them down or fix anything that is wrong with those, and then it goes from us directly to Chris Brown in IT. They take care of intercoms and anything else we put on. The best thing I can tell you about them, of course, here's a fire panel. Here's one that's inside that you can see. We have the knowledge and the capability to where they can take some of these panels and lay them down on their desk at our shop underneath a magnifying glass with lights on it, and they can actually fix some of the different components of boards just like this. They'll pull pieces out and resolder or suck solder out. I actually used them. We had a school that was down, part of it was down, some classrooms, and it was a control board in an HVAC unit. It knocked out a good portion of that school. We tried to order some in. We got a new one in. It didn't work. We looked and we found a smaller one. We found where it fell out and part of it was broke. A piece had come off of it, had broken off. And so we had to order it. But I took the old one to our electronics, and they sat down in that same spot and they worked on it until they got that component put back on a board similar to this. We plugged it in and our air came right back on. I still ordered the other part because now we've got it, and we've got it maybe at the school with that unit put somewhere to where we can put it on if something happens to it. The wiring and everything and the detail that they have to go through here, you see right here on all of their components. A gentleman here working on a camera on a building, you never know what they're going to be doing. You never know the equipment that they're going to have and everything that they do. We're very, very proud of them. Plumbing. Let me tell you, folks, this is not an average plumber. Boy, can I tell you some stories. Boy, can I tell you some things that we found.
And pictures.
Catch me after this, and I might even have a few pictures. Thank you. But our plumbers, the things that they do, the first picture I brought up here, when you think of a plumber, we're not just changing out, we're not just changing out toilets or urinals, things like that. This is a pipe that goes from a kitchen at Nannyberry that goes to our grease trap that we have to pump out. This particular pipe had filled up over the years until it was almost completely solid. I would tell you the smell of grease, but you wouldn't understand it. It's horrible. It's been sitting there. But this is what they deal with. They're on their knees. They're on the ground. I bought them some stools when they're working on things. This is a simple water fountain change out, but it's not that simple. We got to see what's in that pipe and how to clear that as he goes through. Picture of the gentleman sitting here. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this is Guild. They're starting to bust up the concrete right here because we've got to get to a pipe that's underneath that. So they're working the equipment. You can see the bucket there of a mini excavator that we have. They're digging that out. They're finding this. They're in a ditch here in front of Knox Doss, fixing a water line that's essential to the school. We've got to get it fixed. But these are the things that they do. That's why I tell you they're such skilled tradesmen.
Hey, one thing I do want to mention is when you're looking at these pictures, the fact that we can do this in-house saves us a significant amount of money. If you are hiring someone third party to come in and fix some of these things, the cost would be astronomical. So the fact that we have these individuals that can do it is pretty amazing. And so I know a lot of what you're talking about here, and I know how much it costs. So I appreciate the team that you have and the knowledge and their skill set.
Thank you.
I don't think they get enough recognition for what they do to keep our schools running.
Well, I'm very proud of them. Thank you. Our electrical crews, folks, this is probably the most unseen thing that you don't even think about. They're probably underappreciated in the schools because if you flip the lights on, then everything's fine. You don't think about them until something doesn't work. But like I told you, we don't just deal with single phase like you've got at your house. We deal with three-phase. This is the same things that you see crews like NES or Tri-County dealing with. Everything that they deal with is such high voltage, and they've got to be able to go through there and take care of that. But our electrical crews are second to none. Our supervisor for the electrical crew is probably the smartest electrician I've ever worked with in all of my careers. And he's been with the county for probably at least 35 years. And I hope he never retires. I really do. But one of the pictures we've got here, what they're pulling right there, that's actually electrical wire. It's that big. And we had to pull that underground from central office because it was all bad. Gallatin Electric said, hey, you either change this out or we're shutting down the central office. Well, I'm just going to tell you, I can't let that happen. So we had to rewire an entire outside transformer, and we had to do that on our own. And they're able to do that. We're out in front of schools putting things up for signs. We're doing new services. We're in the ceilings. We're climbing up in the mezzanines. We're trying to find where something's broke, what's bad, to take care of it. We're doing renovation projects. Right here is a panel that you guys would probably be familiar with, probably something similar to your house, only bigger. And we're having to split off from it and put a whole nother one in to supply the needs to everything that we've got. And they're able to do this. They're also out with our equipment, putting in underground services, underground feeds. They have to do all this. They're working with the equipment as well. Our grounds and roofing, you don't think about them until you get water dripping into your classroom. And then you think about them, you call in for the roof. We go up there and we fix a lot of this ourselves. We're on top of roofs doing anything from shingles to EPDM roofs to torch down roofs, metal roofs, any of these things. I've got guys that are able to fix that and trace things down and work on them. But also part of being grounds and roofing are different projects like you see right here behind Madison Creek. That whole bank behind Madison Creek, we went through there and shored that bank up right beside the school, put that wall up, made it look nice, held it in so we could take care of it a little bit better. You'll probably see something like that if you're in the beach area right behind T.W. Hunter. That whole big wall where all the water used to come down, that was our guys. We took an engineer's report, went through there and followed that report and built that wall and diverted that drainage, all with those crews. Hendersonville High School track going around their field. We started to have a piece that was starting to cave in a little bit there. You can see it. Well, what they've got to do is they got to get down in that hole and get underneath it and figure out how to shore that up and how to make that work again. A shot put at Hendersonville that the grounds crew went out there and put in. That was all concrete for shot put. That circle right there, I'm not sure how it works. We just know how we got to make it. You know, they had to form all that up. They poured all that concrete. They had to put in the perfect circle. But you see, how do you trial that out? They pack a trailer up, and one of them grabs the other one's belt and holds on to him while he leans over and trials all that out to make it look nice. Clyde Riggs, just part of our roof and putting a new metal roof on it. Oakmont. One of the things that we do that I've been so fortunate as to be able to get some equipment we need. We try to handle any of the potholes and bad things that we can on our own. They saw cut this out. It was all caving in. It was all potholes. They saw cut it out. We went and got new asphalt in our hot box machine that we've got, rolled it out and fixed that. These are things that we do on our own. These are the things that would cost so very much if we had to send it out to someone else. Heating and air. Everybody likes heating and air. That's the best job out there because people are going to appreciate you because nobody wants to be hot, nobody wants to be cold. And these guys work hard at this. We've got so many units. I thought for a minute, man, how can I explain to you guys how many different units that we have? And there was no possible way to do that. So I took a picture of my guys doing filters because I thought, you know what? Our board's going to know what that filter looks like. It looks like something that you would put in your house. To let you know how many units we have, I've got 3 of these box trucks and 3 separate guys that all run different routes every day, all year long, doing nothing but changing filters. And it's everything we can do to keep up with those filters. That should tell you about how many units that we have. But we do anything from working on these wall packs. They're taking them apart. I'm not calling out companies to work on this. We did this to the back of White House Annex. The gym did not have air, and neither did Hawkins a few years ago. We ordered the units. My guys poured the pads. They set the units. They did the duct work. They did the duct sock. And we, in-house, gave those schools heat and air in their gyms that they didn't have before. All of that would have cost thousands and thousands of dollars separate and apart from us. Our carpentry and cabinetry, boy, they pick up a whole lot of the leftovers. They do anything from painting to they're getting ready to pour a concrete pad here for a little small greenhouse. So they're scooping all that out. They're getting ready to form it up to pour the concrete. We have expert masons. That's our guys you see building that building. That's Portland High School's football field right there. That's the bathrooms. My guys poured all the concrete. They laid it out. They shot the grade. They laid the block. They did the roof. They did the heating and air. We did all of the plumbing. We built all of that. So we built some buildings. All the way up
Let me jump in. Go back to that slide, Andy. I'll just give you a hint, like just an idea of what this savings was. When this was included in the bid for the football stadiums, the bathroom was, I want to say around $110,000 was the quoted price, and they built it for $48,000. So like now we can't build, you know, they couldn't do the entire stadium project because we have so much other stuff to do, but you know, they were able to actually fix a problem that had been a problem in Portland for a long time. In really, what, Andy, about 2.5 months, I think? 2 months?
Yeah, it was about that. But I mean, we take these projects and we pick them up, and then we go have to work on schools, and we come back, and we do that, and then we go work on schools, and then we come back. It would have been a lot quicker if we stay on it, but we can't. We got to prioritize, just like we talked about. Your bathroom floors, all of the epoxy that we put down, they do that. It's a 2-part epoxy. We pull up that old vinyl. Boys' bathrooms are usually about the worst as far as smell, but we get rid of all that flooring in there, put an epoxy down, and it takes care of that. Custodians appreciate it. Principals love it. Our cabinetry shop, you'll just have to see it one day. I can't describe to you what they can do, but a picture kind of says it. This is just one that we had. All of those cabinets, all of those countertops, everything made in-house. They could make things for your house and make your kitchen beautiful, but we did all that in-house, in our shop, built it, and then went out there and put it in. We do multiple things like this a year for schools that they need it, that they need. You know, here's shelving. If you walk into Beach Elementary, the whole reception when you walk in right there, all of that, desk, everything was made by us in-house. We've done so many of those projects, and we continue to save a ton of money doing that. And then as we get here towards the close of this, we do lawn care as well. We didn't used to, but we watched that over the years, and we watched the price continually go up and go up, and the service and the work that we got out of them go down. You know, they were supposed to mow it every 10 days, and we would look, and it would be longer than 10 days. You could tell it'd be so high. Our different principals would call and say, hey, can you call these guys? And at that time, it was Dr. Phillips, and Dr. Phillips said, hey, I'm not paying this anymore. It's getting astronomical. I'm not going to pay that. let's bring it in-house. And then he dropped it on me. So I had to figure that out. And you know what? We did. We figured it out. We figured it out. We got the equipment. We got the guys gradually hired in. But here's one thing that you don't know that we do. In this shop right now, we've got a lift. And we've got a guy that not only mows too, and the supervisor, but we do all of the repairs and all of the service on all of our mowers. We lift them up, we fix them. They've gotten now to where all of our other small engines, they take it up there, and those guys work on that, especially in the wintertime, and fix all those as well too. We keep every bit of it in-house, as well as even our own gas tanks that we bought that are full of non-ethanol, so it doesn't tear up our mowers. We get that in, and that's all we run in them, and we run these mowers until they get so old. And every year I try to buy at least 3 new ones. If I don't buy 3 new ones at least every year, then all of a sudden one year I'm going to go, hey, I need about $275,000 to buy new mowers. Well, I can't do that. So we keep up with that, and we keep processing them through.
I think, let me jump in just a second. I think one of the things that we found when we tried to outsource landscaping, you know, when Dr. Phillips came in 2011, I remember the first time that I heard about Dr. Phillips coming to our campus, the thing was, you better make sure the grounds look good and the building's clean. Jeremy, I don't know if that was something that y'all sent out intentionally or, but you know, like we didn't really have I mean, I can say like when my dad was a principal, we had a guy there that was like part-time maintenance, part-time custodian, and he cut the grass, or football coaches cut the grass. By the time I came back as a teacher, we had begun, or when Dr. Phillips came, we began to outsource it, and the problem we ran into is you couldn't get one company that could do the entire county. They didn't have the scale to do it. So we had 10, 12, 13 different individual contracts. Well, half of them did it for a couple months and then quit and dropped out, and then others they just couldn't, they didn't have enough resources to do it on a 10-day schedule. And I mean, like with the acreage that we have and the facilities that we have, you've got to stay on top of it constantly or it really gets away. And now if you see, other than the fact that sometimes they might trim with Roundup, there's really not any other complaints.
That's right. We love our liquid trimmer, by the way. That helps us speed things along. But we try to get everything done in a week. We try to catch every school every week. That's the goal. And 99% of the time, we're able to do that. I've had to buy a few specialty mowers like this one right here to catch some of the banks because they're so steep. If you ever, that same bank I told you about at T.W. Hunter, you do good to stand up on it, but that thing will actually hold that, and we can stripe it. Liberty Creek's got quite a few as well. But matter of fact, there's Liberty Creek right there. I thought that was a great picture to show you that they don't just go around in a square. The guys, they try to stripe it. They want their stuff to look good. They're proud of it. And they want the schools to be proud of it too. So they take ownership in it. But the best thing is as soon as we call mowing for the year and we say we're done for the year, then I've got all of those men that I can infuse into the other departments, and we get so much done. Like right now, we are getting so many things done because I've got that influx of men that I can put in the grounds.
Tell us some of the specific things that they're doing, Andy.
Well, I've got some in the grounds and roofing crew. They're helping out with that. I've got some that go to the carpentry crew and help out with different things. They'll take a lot of work orders that we got that we can't get to. I need you to put up new whiteboards. I need these little things. I need pencil sharpeners. I need this. And they'll start closing out those work orders as fast as they can. They'll go into electronics. When we did a whole new camera system in a lot of schools, they went into electronics and did nothing but take down all the old ones because they didn't have to worry if they worked. They just took them down. We had to get them down. They're fixing engines. They're fixing things at schools. Sometimes we'll take a school's lawnmower and see if we can fix it. We try to take care of all of this in the wintertime. Some of the pictures I've got here is these are all mowers at Westmoreland. We're trying to get these parking lots clear. We're trying to get the snow off, or they're throwing down salt, they're scraping them. That last little snow that we had a few weeks ago, they were out pushing off sidewalks, getting it ready for the next day to make sure that nobody had any slip, trips, or falls. Jack Anderson had a family day, and somebody parked in the grass, and then as you can see, they got hung up in the grass. Well, these guys in the off season especially will go through there and rake that, take machinery on it, fix it, seed it, straw it, and try to get it all fixed back. They are busy year round. I love it when they mow the grass. I hate to see them go back to that because we're getting so much done. But we appreciate them. But all we can say is thank you. And folks, sincerely, thank you for the job security. Man, we have got a lot of work to do, and we're happy to have it. Thank you.
Mr. Hollis?
Hey, yes, you got a big job, so kudos to you for staying on top of all that. I worked at ServPro for a few years back in the day, so I understand what you're having to deal with. And I've been in a lot of these schools after hours as a coach in the gyms and some of those things, and I have, help clean up after basketball games because my kids are playing or whatnot. But I think I heard you say we have 72 full-time maintenance employees. Is that the number you mentioned?
Currently right now, yes, sir.
Okay. And I'm just curious about, when I took this job, like one of the interests I had in this job was trying to let teachers teach. So I'm always looking for things that takes any burden off of a teacher. And I'm just wondering, in just a couple of random questions, like, what are some common complaints that you get from the school system or the teachers or the principal? What are, when you get a work order, what's the turnaround time for that? When you get a work order to completion? And then I guess another question as you were talking about lawnmowers and things, deferred maintenance, what are the big ticket items hanging out there? And this may not be the forum and whatnot, but these are some of the things that was going through my mind as you were speaking about them.
Well, to answer your questions, common things that teachers have issues with, too hot, too cold, something like that with their classroom. That's typically the most. Maybe an issue with the bathroom, or they may have some just requests. I want to move a projector. I want to put in a different light. Maybe this light gives me headaches. Can you do something? We'll put dimmers on it. Any of those things that we can do. Principals, a little bit more so on the things that they want. They're looking out for the entire building and not just a specific classroom. So it's such a variety of stuff. What are the work orders? You ask what the typical turnaround is. Everything is so fluid. Some of them I'll turn it same day. Some of it I'll turn in an hour. If we've got a cooler or a freezer that goes down on a cafeteria, we're on it immediately and we'll have it fixed in the next hour. I've got 2 gentlemen that can do that. Any of those critical things like that. If we've got an intercom down, we jump on that right away. A fire panel that's down, we go up there and take care of that because that's very important. Then we've got some things that we'll circle back to that may not be that important. It may be just a wish list. Hey, when you get an opportunity, can you do this? So we're going to do critical first, then we're going to work our way down. So everything is prioritized. And when the school sends it in, they have an opportunity to mark on there a priority. This is a high priority. This is a medium priority, or this is a low priority. And we get to see that.
I think, Mr. Ross, I think when they have the parts and the materials and supplies, it's usually within a day or two that things get turned around. What we're seeing now with HVAC is a couple things like the part that I don't understand, and it's just lean marketing principles. Like, for instance, when Jack Anderson got struck by lightning, the HVAC worked, right? The panel got fried by the lightning. The panel company that only does panels didn't have that panel in stock. They were able to get something and retrofitted until the new one came in, so we were down about 4 days, I think. But that's one, because the number one thing that I hear from teachers about maintenance, especially over the last couple of years, has been primarily HVAC stuff. And so I think there were 2 things. I think the maintenance part, we get a quick response from. I think that if you look at what we spent, a significant amount of that $14.4 million last year was trying to get caught up. Because we still have, we ran about $76 million bond project 2015 to do renovations and upgrades. And a lot of that was because, and I want to be really careful because I don't want to seem like I'm critical of previous superintendents or commissions or school boards or anything. They did the best they could, but Sumner County didn't invest as a county in those things. So we had, like when I came back to teach in 2009, my classroom at White House High School looked exactly like it did when I was a student. There was nothing that had changed. And so, you know, during volleyball season, parents would complain that it was hot in the gym. It's like, yeah, it's always been hot in there. After the renovation, so I think that we've had to hit those big things, and we still, what we've tried to do is, like in this year, if you look at our capital, we've reserved, we did some big capital projects, and we put about $200,000 or $300,000 in there for him to catch. Like some of the things that they've done to start trying to modernize, like I think we did Nannyberry last year. We're doing Millersville currently. We did Madison Creek last year, so that when we upgrade those panels and those switches and everything, we can centrally, they've got more accurate central controls to be able to run it. So I think that that's going to be part of an ongoing process, is modernizing some of that HVAC equipment. Like we replaced Portland High School's roof. We're doing a big chunk of Gallatin High School's roof right now, Station Camp. Those were just deferred maintenance projects that we didn't do, that we had to bite the bullet and do. That was because we had, you know, for a couple years prior to last year, we had tried to shift so much capital locally to schools to do things that they needed, because we hadn't replaced scoreboards in 30 or 40 years. We needed digital, you know, it's like, you always feel in this business like you're trading off money and things like that. So I think that there's a couple things, like I think one of the things that we're trying to look at strategically that we can share with y'all a little bit later in budget is, what are we seeing that are going to be big items that we need to purchase, some of which are not incredibly exciting, like swapping out panels and stuff like that, but they really help us control but I think some of the stuff you've done, like Beach High School Annex has been one that's always given us fits for HVAC, and we're pretty close now to having replaced most of the problematic units. Bethpage Elementary's had a library unit out for years because they put the unit and then they put the roof on over top of the unit, and you couldn't get that unit out without taking the roof off. So they finally found a workaround. I think we've got that one operating now in the process. So there's some of that, but I think I would say, like I can say from the first year I was a principal, 2014 to now, I had POs that had been open for 10 or 12 years. And now I would say it's no more than, you know, 8 or 10 days tops, unless we just can't get. I think that's the most frustrating part that I hear from teachers is like, I hear you, you know, we're trying to switch rooms, we're trying to do anything we can, but you know, it's gotten a little better when you say, Andy, but for a while we were running like sometimes 6 to 8 months on turnaround for HVAC parts.
Right, parts are starting to come in quicker.
Mr. Evans?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for always, over the last 4 years, all my emails about fixing basketball goals. I appreciate that from the Parks Department. So, never actually got to meet. My question is, I know you guys are in the schools doing stuff. What does it look like when people report stuff to you? So, for instance, like, I love Nannyberry, that's where I went to elementary school. And I know you've probably done a lot of plumbing work, but like, the boys' bathroom upstairs has been the same boys' bathroom since I went there. Like, you know, I know you guys are not in charge of identifying things that need to be fixed and upgraded, but how is that process relayed to you and your team?
Well, I mean, we try on that. We've got some dated or old bathrooms, things like that we try to see when we can go in there and renovate those. And we do a lot of that. And we, you know, sometimes those are just as easily renovated by epoxying the floor, changing out the sinks and toilets, maybe a new countertop. We've done some of that at Nannyberry just recently to try to upgrade their bathrooms to make everybody a little bit happier and more proud of their building. So.
I'll jump into, so one of the,
how he gets it too?
Well, my thought was like, basically, you know, because parents are going to reach out to us and say, well, this, and this. And that's not a complaint. It was just more of like, I knew that was an example because, I mean, I was just there. My nephews go there. I was just there the other day.
Yeah,
It'd be good for people to know.
So I think it's, you know, I think, Mr. Evans, it's, so like some things that we've started to do, used to our process for addressing school level building needs was we would come in for a budget meeting as a principal in the end of February, and we would share those needs. And then a lot of times what would happen, you know, for a while, that's the reason that we had the huge renovation project with the 75 million was there was so much that needed to be done. It was overwhelming. And a lot of that even went into immediately trying to address the needs in our schools to prepare for the growth that we knew that was coming, which we've done a good job managing. But I think that, so for instance, where we have changed over the last 2 years is when we went around and did a preliminary round of principal evaluations in August, or really just meetings, and we asked them to begin to identify and assess what were the immediate needs of their school. We asked, like, what are your top 3 capital needs? Now, our principals are really creative. We had everything from a total building makeover to 3 points with 27 bullet points under, most of which were related to the Bain topic, but not all. I mean, I loved it. I thought it was really fun. You still only got 3, but we went. But like we've taken, so like right now, so what we've done is not all of those were capital, because like our principals are instructional leaders, not maintenance engineers. So they put down what their needs were.
That's what I was getting at.
And so we've kind of morphed that into kind of a capital maintenance list. And so we've got a huge spreadsheet. Andy has been working to see what they can knock off. And so what we're trying to do is when we go back, because I think part of the problem we had is there was no way for a principal to know where that project was on the priority list. Because a lot of times what happens is, if you take, for instance, like painting. Painting is an ongoing need across the county in schools. That's something where Andy's team, they'll handle a couple of, sometimes they handle it, but it's not really a good use of his guys to tie them up painting for long periods of time. So a lot of times what we'll do is he'll get the school to paint, and they'll paint it, or if it's a small project, or we do outsource that a couple different ways, because we have some guys that are really affordable, they work well with us, and they can knock out paint jobs fast. And a lot of times what he'll do is, if he has money left over in lines at the end of the year, he'll knock out, we have kind of a priority list of those painting projects, and he'll knock a bunch of those out. So kind of what we're looking at is we'll start budget meetings in 2 weeks with principals, and we'll go through and say, hey, this has either happened and we're going to celebrate it, it's about to happen, so be ready for it. This is on a list that we hope to have money at the end of the year to begin to knock out. We'll go as deep into the list as we can. Or this is a next year. Or sometimes there are just things like if you look at the dome at Ellis, right? Everybody loves the dome at Ellis, but you can only bleach that thing so many times before it starts to do structural damage to the roof. So there are things there that we just have to accept, that the cost of having the dome is that the dome turns black and looks like it does, and there's not a whole lot. I think we can only wash it one more time.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. So, so anyway, I think there's that component, but like I'm looking at our list right now, we have somewhere around 207 principal requests. And so all of which are vital. Now some, like as Andy said, some are vital. Like for instance, one of the things that Katie's team identified this year was White House High School was 2 buildings originally. It was White House High School, White House Middle School that became White House Annex. Beach High School had the same thing. The old Hunter became the Beach High School Annex. Well, they were built as 2 separate schools with 2 separate intercoms, 2 separate bell systems. One of the things that y'all approved a couple months ago was syncing those bells and syncing those intercoms so that it's the same. That becomes more of a priority because that's a safety concern. Last year we put $700,000, $800,000 into window film because we didn't want to wait on the money from the state. We wanted to go ahead. We thought that was a significant enough investment to make to go ahead and jumpstart that process. So those kind of things take priority. The roof at Portland, when we looked at our roofing needs, replacing the full roof at Portland was one of the #1 districts in the priority. That was about $1.2 million. So we knocked that out last year. So we have some big, I think we've started the last couple of years to knock out some of those really big ones. And then we try to cycle through and get as many, because if you look at everything like Indian Lake Elementary had like this curse. Indian Lake and Howard, there's a spring somewhere under those buildings. And it causes really bizarre things, like it makes the glue in the tiles seep up between the tiles. And so we finally replaced that at Indian Lake. We replaced Howard's a couple years ago, because Howard, in addition to having that problem, they looked like they were taken out of the Omni in Atlanta. They were orange, matched none of the other decor in the school, but that happened a lot in the 70s. We put down whatever color we had. So you're seeing, I think, moving to these epoxy floors. There's nothing that smells worse than a 6th grade boys' bathroom that had tile floors. Going to epoxy has been tremendously helpful. So I think that it's just, and I think the thing that's a grind for his team is that, the time you get it all done, it's like the filters run to scale. When you get done, you got to go back around again and do it all again. And so, like we're going to always need more money in that pot to try to knock out more things. I would envision, I don't really want to talk about taking on debt or anything like that, but at some point we'll have to do not as big as the 75 million that we did in 2014 or 15, but there'll have to be some, because it's hard to pay a couple $1 million for a roof or for an HVAC or some of the things like that. But you know, we're finally, probably last year for the first time in the history of Sumner County, we've been able to move into being a little bit more proactive instead of reactive. That's been, you know, when, you know, some of the things, because you'll see that the guys that have been in his department for 30 or 35 years, they know where everything was done, because a lot of times things were done not up to industry standards, not because they didn't have craftsmen and good workers back then. They just didn't have the money and they had to just fix it. So we had water and air and things like that. You know, I think you'll look at some, like if you take a school like Merrill Hyde, the only way you can really get at some of the core needs of Merrill Hyde is to renovate the entire school. Until that point, you know, that HVAC is 50 years old probably.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Some
There's
water
just
source.
there's just things that are going to have to, you know, you just have to bite the bullet and say we're going to spend a couple $1 million to renovate the interior. You know, to give you an example, so this was 2014, 15 prices will be much higher now. White House High School was 8.25 million. I think Beach was 11. Those were pretty substantive renovations of a high school space. But I would say if you look at the inflation cost, if you did Merrill Hyde, it would be somewhere around that. And there are just a couple, you know, current Gallatin High School is another one. It's got some new additions, but it's an old building, and those are just things that we have to me, that's part of the strategic planning aspect of the board, is saying where are big focal points where we know we've got to jump in, and there's only so much routine maintenance we can do to keep those up. We got to make a significant investment to upgrade.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Mr. Brown, you're at the principals' meetings for the larger projects and this list that the principals give you. You're part of that.
Yes, ma'am.
So it's the directors, right? Everyone meets with those principals, so you're hearing from them as they're projecting what their needs are and academics and everything. But on a day-to-day basis, you have work orders.
I do, yes, ma'am.
So, and those work orders are where, when things come up, work orders are submitted to you. And then you, whatever that need is, it goes to electronics, it goes to your electrical, it goes to whatever, your plumbing, and then your team goes out.
That's right.
With the work order. I know that you run your department efficiently. And as best you can, my experience, Mr. Evans and board, is that any time something has been brought to my attention and there's a work order attached to it, you all are right on it. And the bathrooms look great at Nanny Berry.
Great.
And typically in the elementary schools, there is that teamwork with our PTOs. You know, the PTO presidents, the officers, they're recognizing some things and they partner. They'll make it known to me, hey, Ms. Hayes, there are these things we'd like to see done. Is it something the maintenance department and the principal will communicate with you? How many months ago, was it last fall, walked Nanny Bear with you.
You did?
These are the things that we needed to, with the PTO president, the principal. These are some things that are going on right now, repairs. I know that elevator is a gotta have to be done, right?
It's on the list.
It's already
on the list.
approved.
Good.
We've already got the bid on that. It's already in process.
Good. So you guys, if it can be done, you guys are right on it. I mean, I've had nothing but very positive. And one thing, I just want to give you a shout out. I know some of your maintenance and some of them that have retired, that have worked in the maintenance department. You do a phenomenal job of building team, family. You really get to know those that work in your department and you care about them. You go above and beyond. When there are needs in their lives and their families, even a death of a spouse, with a common friend that we have, you are there. You are supportive. I'm not surprised that's who you are, but I hear from these maintenance employees, they love you, and they've got a great work ethic, but you invest in them, and it is evident. it is evident. So thank you, sir.
Thank
So,
you.
Ms. Hayes, I think you hit on something that, just so you know, like, so at the school level, that's kind of the first line of identifying issues. So typically, like, teacher will report to whoever the administrator, sometimes it's the principal, sometimes it's an AP, sometimes it's a secretary, and they will put that in School Dude, which is the maintenance system that manages our work orders, and then it's assigned and routed, and, you know, it's not bottlenecked. Most of the time now, I think we're efficient enough with it now that it goes straight to the crews, and they have ways of sifting through that. We also order all of our custodial supplies and everything like that through School Dude. They have a certain time each week where they put it in, and the machine runs. So you're talking about, you know, hundreds, if not thousands a day of those are going through, and generally knocked out pretty good. Well, I think it'll be interesting. We need to get a time on what the average response time is on a work order. I think we can certainly get that.
Well, one thing I can tell you is every work order is processed every day and goes to the crew. So if it comes in that day, if it's not an emergency the next morning, that supervisor's going through all of those work orders and assigning them out to the different people in that crew, wherever they need to go that day.
Ms. Barnes?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Brown, to you and your crew and what you do. I'm always amazed from actually serving with the city of Portland, now serving with the school board, when I see all of these departments and what great pride that 99% of employees have. So thank you. My question is around, thank you for the overview, because pictures are really worth 1,000 words. I realized a good part of what you did, but I've learned more. When you think about that diversity of that talent, and especially from different industries, how do you keep that pipeline of talent coming through to support your needs? Do you partner with TCAT? TCAT came to mind immediately, but what's been your strategy around that?
Well, TCAT, we always try, and I've hired a few from TCAT. The president of TCAT and I are on a first name basis, so he'll call every now and then, or I'll call him. Good person, would love Nathan.
Yes.
But other than that, a lot of it comes through networking through our guys that we've got there right now. Who do they know? Who can they find? Who can they bring in? That's the first place I go and say, hey, we've got an opening. Help me find somebody. And they'll give good recommendation. They'll say what they can do. They've worked with them in the past. Because a lot of my guys don't just work for the school district. When we get off work, some of them will go out and do their own job. They'll do their own electric. They'll do their own heat and air. They've got a side business where they'll do that. And they'll pick up those people that way. That's my biggest source. If I just relied on posting it on the internet, you'll get somebody every now and then, but you got to get out there and beat the bushes.
Right.
I think one of the things that we were able to do last year when we talked about the 29 million we invested in compensation. One of the other things that Mr. Ott and his team did was we used to have this thing where it was created to solve a problem in a different generation, but it was like if you came in from somewhere else, you didn't get credit for your year's experience. You got, what was it, like a 1, 2, or 3, So basically, if you had 25 years experience, you came in as a year 3. And so, we were asking people that had credentials and certifications and everything else to come in at $8, $9 an hour lower than what they could make. And by addressing that need, it's really helped us not just retain our current people, but also attract others to come in.
Absolutely. Any former students do you see come through?
Any students on occasion.
On occasion.
A lot of times we'll
Just
work
curious.
students in the summertime. Some of them will go to school and then want to come back. We've had some that have worked during the summer as students and then come back and work for us for a number of years, and then maybe move on to a municipality or somewhere else. So,
Right.
yeah, we do.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Pretty?
First of all, thank you, because there have been a few situations that I've reached out probably through central office where you guys have been so quick to respond and to get something fixed. So I'm grateful for that. My first question is, what is the best way for us to partner with you when we hear of or see or observe something that needs your attention? For example, I was with Mr. Wise at a school once, and I saw him immediately connect with you because there was a gutter that was leaking the wrong way. So what's the best way we can connect with you on those? And then also, what's the best way that we can partner with you to support your team for what you're doing? Like, how can we help?
So the best way, number one, is always you can get with your principal and they can put that in. But I encourage anybody, if you would like to, you can always get with me. Let me go ahead and tell you, Mr. Ted Wise didn't hold back. He got with me. He rang that cell phone whenever he wanted to. And I know he substitute teaches now, so I'm going to go pick on him at some point while he's doing that.
Good.
But anybody can reach out and we'll respond. Oftentimes, even if it's after hours, I'll send things out to the guys so that they're there first thing in the morning. Or I might be able to even handle it right then or have an idea of what's going on. Or it may be something that's already handled that I can tell you about. I try to stay informed on everything. If I don't have the answers, I'm going to tell you I don't have the answers, and then I'll reach out to my guys who will have the answers, and I'll get back to you, which is very easy to do. The best way to answer your question that you can support us, and this goes for each and every one of you, is to keep doing what you're doing and help us every year as you approve all of our budgets. We are so blessed and we are so fortunate to have the budgets that we do have, and I promise you I use every penny of that. At the end of that budget year, whatever I've got that's left, I try to see what special things I need to do in the schools. So I watch it closely during the year. I'm a good steward of it. I make sure that we don't waste it, but we fix things, and then at the end we say, hey, we're going to do this painting, or hey, we're going to do this floor, or T.W. Hunter, I'm going to replace all of these windows that have fogged up. I can't do them all this year, but I'm going to do this part. And then the next year I do another part until finally the whole building's done. But they see what's going on. So that's the best way you can do. That's absolutely the best. And you can always reach out to me.
Mr. King?
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about replacing windows and flooring and HVAC and normally people would not find that exciting, but you make it sound like it's, man, I want to get up in the morning and I want to go to work and I want to work for this department. It just sounds like an exciting place to work, and so that's a testament to you, sir. And it just sounds, I'm just really fascinated by everything that you guys have going on. I never thought I'd say replacing windows sounds like a cool gig, but it sounds
Probably
like a lot
cooler here, Mr. King.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of fun to be a part of your team. One question, I'm just curious. You talked about outsourcing and keeping things in house. What are some things that you do? Like, it was mentioned the painting was something we outsource. What are some other things that we might outsource, that you might outsource?
Painting is one of the things that we'll do if it's a large project like a whole school, because I've got 2 guys that paint for the whole district. So we can't keep up with it all, but we do a lot, and they're doing it every day. Different things may be large heating and air projects, just so I can keep the other guys that I've got currently taking care of all the other schools.
Okay, so that was one thing I was going to ask. Like, do you ever outsource HVAC? So
yeah, we will. Matter of fact, we have an open bid right now. I say an open bid. We put out for bid, and 2 companies were awarded on that, to where we already know how their prices are going to fall and what we need to do. And if I need help, I can call them and they drop everything in a moment's notice and they help. But what they do is they take care of big things. Like we were so fortunate to get funding for Station Camp High School gymnasium units this year. Well, all of those units, they're big units. We're taking off the old water source ones and we're putting back on air over units like you would have at your house with gas, heat, and we're making sure there's nothing going to drip on that new floor anymore, and we're getting it where it's all working. Now my guys will save all the parts from the old units we're taking off, because we can use those to fix other units on the same school, but we'll contract that out. Big things.
Okay. Well, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what you can. I think that's the thing is, like, I think what you have to weigh out is if something's we have 72 maintenance personnel, you can't tie up 37 of them. Because then you're limiting. Because we had even sometimes, like one of the cold snaps we had some individual rooms out at Madison Creek. We had to ship off to Hunter because we had an entire wing go out at Hunter. So we had to go knock those out first, because Madison Creek could, for a day or 2, move a classroom or 2 around while we fixed this entire wing at Hunter. And then we came back and caught that 1 or 2. That's handled internally, but there are some things like, I think HVAC, Roofing is another, like if it's patching a roof, they'll do it, but if it's replacing like the whole roof of Portland High School, that's something that we'll contract on.
All right, and one thing you mentioned, I just think it's kind of important to cover as well, is you'd mentioned the fogging, especially during seasons like this where you have a lot of sickness. I know as board members, every time this year we see the posts on Facebook, we get the phone calls. Somebody's always asking, what's the number of students that have to be sick before we close schools? And I can tell you from experience, just with ServPro, we've done COVID cleaning, we've gone into schools that have shut down. It sounds like a great idea. And for 2 days, the school's healthy. But as soon as you open up that school again and the sick kids come back in, 2 days later, you're back in the same spot.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of other factors that have to be considered when you're talking about shutting down a school system for things like that. It's not that nobody cares that the kids are sick, but there are just certain things that you can and can't do in order to mitigate that. And I think what you are doing, trying to go in where we identify areas of need to fog and try to limit the exposure as much as you can. But again, if you have a parent that sends a kid in sick, it's going to be right back there in the room.
Yeah, and I think, Mr. Daniels, the classic story of that is during COVID, one of the few times that we shut down for like 2 days to try to get the numbers down. And we had an entire cheerleading team that decided to have a sleepover because we were out of school. And we ended up then having to quarantine the entire cheer team. So, being out of school doesn't mean that kids are not going to still be around each other. And we did confirm, Katie, I don't know if you knew this, but we had a school that they wanted they had a kid get sick in the bathroom, and they decided that they would sanitize the bathroom. We did discover that if you fog the bathroom, it will set off the vape sensors.
Good to know. Good to know. Awesome. Well, appreciate it, Ms. Brown. I know you've done a great job. A lot of us have texted you from time to time and say, hey, there's a lock over here at the stadium that's broken or something else that's going on, and your team have jumped on that immediately. So I appreciate the way you prioritize and try to address everything to the best of you and your team's abilities. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
All right, next item on the agenda, discussion of board resolution in support of the Sumner County Commission paying off all athletic booster club debt. I know this was brought to the board by Mr. Evans, but I think we've got a presentation real quick, Mr. Langford.
Yeah, and I wanted to share with you, I'm sorry, I usually try to get everything to the school board first, but Mr. Becker and Mr. Schoaf had asked for some information about student support organization debts and things like that. So I didn't want to miss a month, to not give them the information that they've requested. So I did share some of this with the Education Committee last night. Some of the questions that they asked were good questions. I wanted to include those in what I share with you tonight. But I just thought, like, all this is just an overview of kind of where we are and just a few thoughts for y'all to discuss as you discuss Mr. Evans' resolution. So this is where we are current debt-wise. Beach High School, $464,000, baseball and football. I am working on, Mr. Becker asked last night for a more detailed breakdown of what these debts are, just to give you an understanding, because this is the one thing about school and county finances. It's very complex. So, for instance, the school system cannot give money to a student support organization. It's actually illegal for us. It's beyond even an audit finding. It's illegal for us to give money to a student support organization. The county has the ability to give to 501c3s. So they can do charitable. They do this with volunteer fire departments. They've done this in the past. There is historical precedent for them to pay off booster club debts. So, we've done it, I think, with the airport once. There are different ways to pay off 501c3 debt that the county can do that the school system can't. So, kind of the origin of this is Westmoreland High School has about $323,000 in debt, $274,000 for their field house, and then $49,000 for lights on the baseball field. As you can imagine, that's a substantial lift for Westmoreland High School. It's a big burden for their quarterback club to carry. So they had asked the county commission to consider paying off their debt. And of course, in the context of that conversation last month, questions came up about what does everyone else owe. So I wanted to be clear, like this is not something because, it's hard, from your perspective as constituents ask you questions, it's hard sometimes to explain like, well, why doesn't the school system, a really good question last night was, why didn't the school system do this? And I think an important thing to remember is these debts all represent things from the past. Because for much of the history of Sumner County, as we discussed last year when we looked at the stadiums, many of the, much what you said, Ms. Hayes, about PTOs, student support organizations, booster clubs, quarterback clubs, things like that, partnered with the county or just paid for and took on the debt to build facilities around the county. I think we're probably headed towards a future where we don't expect booster clubs to build facilities, right? Because when you do that, when we took over, we inherited or were graciously given the football stadium in Robertson County for White House. And the first thing, this was before Andy was head of maintenance, the gentleman that was in charge of it before Andy came out and he said, there are pipes in that bathroom running everywhere. I was like, yeah, it was built by dads on the weekends, like over 25 years. Like, I promise you there are some plumbing issues. The women's bathroom, in that bathroom floods at halftime of every White House High School football game for history. And you just plunge it. You take a 2-minute break at halftime and you go in and plunge it. Now, I discovered at one point that I had 2 female assistant principals and I was doing the plunging in the women's bathroom. So then I paid a custodian to do it. But anyway, we're at a stage now as a county where we need to move away from that. So I think this is residual debt that sits out there for projects that were done in the past. And I think that the county commission is considering either some or all of this debt. So I wanted to give you a little bit of a heads up. Hendersonville High School, most creative. The version changed between Friday, what we posted, and today, because they were taking some proactive debt. Like if the county commission wanted to pay, they'd go ahead and get a new scoreboard. One other high school offered to take out $2.2 million over the weekend, but we told them this was we're only considering past debts, not future incurred debt. But so Hendersonville's at $164,000. Hendersonville, of course, as we approved the baseball building last time, Hendersonville baseball is located at the park, but they've done work over there. Football, I believe that's mostly from the scoreboard. Soccer and softball with just a little bit of debt there. Station Camp High School, $213,000. That's baseball, primarily the field. Football is residual on the locker room, and soccer's their field house. And then Westmoreland, as we've already talked about, is the football locker room, and then lights for the baseball field. I think if you watched the commission meeting last night, I thought it was for turf on the baseball field. That's a future project that Westmoreland wants. This was actually for the lights. I wanted to correct that. So currently, Gallatin High School, Merrill Hyde, Portland, and White House do not have outstanding student support organization debt obligations. So those 4 schools do not have booster clubs with any athletic debt. This would always include, to my knowledge, no band program in Sumner County has debt. All right, so I'm going to go real quickly through this, so stop me if you have any questions. We shared this last year, and I think it's important to understand what we've done, because the other thing I've heard that I want to push back on a little bit, and it's not even pushback, it's really just information, because we moved so fast that we presume that people paid attention to everything last year. And the reality is we have parents whose kids were 8th graders last year that are 9th graders this year that weren't aware of everything that went on. So I want to put out some information for you to share. So if we look from 2013 to 2023, this is not counting the building of the Liberty Creek and White House Intermediate Schools. So we did about $66.8 million in renovations and additions across Sumner County. You can see that list of schools: Beach High School, George Whitten, Gene Brown, Gallatin High School, Guild, Vena, Hendersonville, Hawkins, Nandy Berry, Walton Ferry, Clyde Riggs, White Hardison, Jack Anderson, Station Camp, and White House. I can't remember if Mr. Gomendon, that was on the commission before, I can't remember if he went to White Hardison or Clyde Riggs as a student, as an elementary student. But I joked about how White House High School was the same when I was there as a student as when I was a teacher. Mr. Gomendon said the elementary school was the same from when he was a student. So that was about 40 or 50 years before there was a renovation. So made substantial work and caught a lot of the deferred maintenance, but still obviously still a lot to do. So when I refer to district, this is capital that the school board voted to give in the budget to give directly to schools from the county, from the district level capital allocation. Okay, the school or community is money that the school raised either through how they invested their money that they received from parents, from tickets, or that booster clubs, SSOs paid. So, you know, this gives you an idea of what the district put in on the projects and then what the school or community contributed. So for instance, you can see Beach High School, $850,000 of district money from the county, and then from the school system, and then $783,439 from the school and community. So what they did with that: football field turf, audio system upgrade in the stadium and gym, football scoreboard and marquee, soccer sprinkler system field upgrades, soccer bleachers, concrete and fencing, baseball field, turf field upgrades, baseball concession building, softball field house HVAC, campus fencing, and the annex gym bleachers. You know, you'll hear some talk about what's a need and a want. You know, you have to also take into account what the campus was provided originally. Beach High School had a gym, and that was it. They played football for a couple years at Hendersonville High School. They played baseball at Malshrike Park, played softball at Malshrike Park, and then gradually the fields were added over time. Gallatin High School, $850,000 from the district and $373,000 from the school and community. And of course, this includes a football field house renovation, press box reno, concession stand, ticket booth, home football bleacher wrap, visitor football new bleachers, softball field and press box, front office flooring, gym floor refinish, football stadium renovations, 2 reel mowers, girls basketball locker room renovation, football PA system, softball scoreboard, weight room renovation, a new ATV, ice machine, soccer locker room renovation. You know, I think the thing for Gallatin to consider is, as you think about what we do now and moving on, so we'll talk about some other items, is Gallatin, you know, of the money that was given to Gallatin, Gallatin paid a significant portion of the visitor side bleachers. Gallatin's visitor side bleachers were in really bad shape. And had they not been replaced, they would have been absolutely on the list of stuff that we replaced last year. So, you know, Gallatin did invest a significant amount of the capital that they received from the county. We paid a little bit more than half, but they put a significant portion of their capital towards that project. Hendersonville, $750,000 from the district. To the best of my knowledge, we had one year where we did the capital where the county put in $50,000 if you matched $50,000 at the local level. I don't think Hendersonville did the matching. I think that's why you'll see they're $100,000 less than the others. The school and communities kicked in $205,732. Football press box renovation, stadium ornamental fencing, football LED scoreboard, sound system upgrade, auditorium lighting and sound, basketball scores table, gym upgrade, music library furniture, wrestling mats, laundry machines, office and classroom furniture. Merrill Hyde, $850,000 from the district. This does not mean, Merrill Hyde does not mean that the community did not support or help pay for any of the things. It's just that we don't have the data on the student support organization. You've got that. That'd be great to have. All right, so again, new gym floor, fencing, soccer field renovation, upstairs carpet, marquee sign, library shelving and furniture, stage curtains, elementary school entrance, elevator, locker room HVAC, campus-wide paving. And the campus-wide paving is maybe the biggest capital project for Merrill Hyde. I mean, it needed to be done years before it was done.
So if you just rough numbers, the Booster Club at Merrill Hyde spends about $60,000 a year. So if you go back for 10 years, you're looking at about $600,000 from that community.
Okay.
Now, I don't know that it goes back that way. I know that's the
Right.
past few years. That's the budget.
Yeah, yeah, and I think there to consider too, there's so much need for upgrades there because of the age of the facility there. All right, Portland High School, $850,000 from the district. Again, you know, there is debt that's been paid off. I believe that they paid off the debt on some of the work that they had done at Portland High School before we started collecting this information. And I know they bought some reel mowers, and if you meet the quarterback club at Portland High School, they're phenomenal. But so, again, like not having the community, it's just sometimes it's harder to gather that information. Football facility, indoor turf, football lockers, line striping machine, softball field renovation, softball scoreboard, soccer field renovation, soccer sound system, LED video board in the gym sound system, library furniture and flooring, auditorium lights and curtains, office, classroom, cafe furniture, band instruments. This does not include things like, obviously, Corey Brewer that played basketball at Portland High School, played in Florida and NBA, contributed significantly for the new gym floor and some other projects around the school. Station Camp High School, $850,000 from the district, $331,000 school and community. Soccer field house, gym floor refinish, gym bleacher renovation, basketball scoreboard, baseball field turf, football scoreboard, a gator, that's a vehicle, not an alligator, a real mower, zero-turn mower, tennis court renovation, wrestling mats, band equipment, library furniture, and furniture for the cafeteria. And then, of course, here's Westmoreland. If you remember in the information, I know I sent this out to the commission. I can't remember if I sent this to the school board or not. Basically, Westmoreland's distribution of funds was roughly the same. They got $100,000 extra 1 year before the other schools did, but then they got $100,000 less the next year because they were trying to get the football locker room built. They received a little bit over $100,000 more, $144,000 more than other district or other schools, because there was a process where the football building was rebid a couple times, redrawn, architecture plans, different things like that, and then some additional capital last year because they didn't get any phase one, projects done.
So, question, so the school community line, just so I'm clear, that's the amount of money the Booster Club has contributed, although some of them have paid their debts off, and then some of them still have an outstanding balance. Is that correct?
That's right. That's right. And then White House, $850,000, and you can see that list of projects: new gym floor, auditorium lighting, baseball scoreboard, softball scoreboard, soccer scoreboard. And you can tell them, let me just say, this was a game changer because, when I started as a principal, it was hard to buy a football scoreboard with the revenue that football generates. It was almost impossible to replace a softball or baseball scoreboard. Soccer scoreboard, we won the state in soccer, and, had we not received capital from the county, we wouldn't have been able to put a new scoreboard up. All right, and then 24-25, I'll run through this real quickly. Last year, in addition to the athletic projects, that we talked about, Beach, Hendersonville, and Portland, we did a number of other projects too that affected athletics. We did $14.4 million in addition to athletic projects. That was a lot of the deferred maintenance stuff that we talked about, roofs, HVAC, different things like that. And I can share that with you. I'll probably do a little presentation on capital in March or April before we roll into budget. Gallatin High School football stadium fence, Gallatin High small gym. That was in HVAC. I left that off in the small gym. That's a real testament to Andy and his team, because for Mr. Daniels, it was about 40 years we didn't believe we could air condition that gym. And they don't just use it for athletics. They do testing in there. They do a lot of different things in there, but that's air conditioned now. Station Camp High gym roof, the soccer building, gym floor. We're doing the HVAC in Station Camp now. White House High School white building HVAC. Gallatin recentered their football field goalpost, athletic facility renovation project, and then we did the new bathroom at Portland. So those were all projects that we did last year for about $1.1 million. And these are ones that we've either approved or in the process of looking at right now. The HHS baseball building, y'all approved in January. Station Camp High School gym HVAC. We will have on the next agenda the lighting for Gallatin High School and Westmoreland High School. That includes the lights like they have at Liberty Creek that dance. Now they have an addition now that we didn't have when we did Liberty Creek, where it washes the home or visitor side in that color lights, where like the Liberty Creek ones point up, these point down too. So that'll be pretty, it's cool for the kids. The positive for us is that coaches can turn them on and off with an app, so they don't get accidentally left on at times, and they don't take 30 minutes to turn on and off. The other thing is that these are LEDs, and Andy will tell you, when you turn on old school stadium lights, you just burn money while they're running. These are very much more energy efficient. Okay, and that's really, I just like to emphasize, you know, this is something that the commission is considering. There was very positive feedback last night from the education committee. I think where you know, just to be as transparent as possible, I think where the commission is going to sit is this is an expenditure outside of the regular budget, right? Typically, we try to push those into budget and have a conversation about it when we do the budget, and not do a mid-year funding unless it's an emergency or it was budgeted for. So I don't know where they will land on that. I do think that the money is there to potentially do something, and I think that they are doing due diligence. The commissioners that I've talked to, and you know, I don't know if we have sides anymore. Whatever we have in Sumner County, I would say everybody that I've talked to is really open to doing, you know, what they think is great for the citizens of Sumner County. I think that there is concern from a number of commissioners that represent Portland, Gallatin, White House, to ask what those schools get. And I think that, you know, what we've tried to do all along is we did this first run of stadiums that we're doing now. We did those because it was an absolute need because of the maintenance needs to be safe for the school campuses. And then we're coming back. We will open on Thursday. When we meet in 2 weeks, we will be able to vote on Station Camp track and football field, Gallatin High School track, Merrill Hyde tennis courts. And then we will open 2 weeks, about a week and a half before our March board meeting, we will open the bids for the North Sumner Elementary safety project. So that will that's very quick on the horizon. So those will be coming. Those were the majority of our phase 1 projects. White House, we were able to repair the stadium. You know, that we had one section that they had questions about. I mean, it was interesting for me because the section that the structural engineer triggered on was that way when I played in the mid-'80s, late 80s. But maintenance was able to meet the needs from the structural engineer, because the home site at White House is built on top of a hill, but it was a concern about the bleachers sliding. They were able to fix that and repair it. You know, we're in the process of looking to possibly acquire a piece of land in White House to put a track. If you remember, we talked about this a couple months ago. If you're going to build a stadium in White House, you have to build the track first, because you're going to lose both your practice fields. And you'll have to have a place for band and football to practice while you build the football stadium. So I'm actually going to meet with the White House Quarterback Club later this month to try to explain everything to them so that they don't feel left out. We have given them additional capital, and they're looking at, they've got a project that they're putting together right now. We got slowed down. They replaced their basketball court, and the vendor had some serious issues, and it took longer, about 6 months longer than we had planned to get the basketball court before we paid that PO and signed off on the work that was done. So they've got some capital money that they had from previous years that's kind of tied up, that you'll see some of the benefits of that coming up in the next few months.
Thank you. I will say the air conditioning, the little gym at the high school. I mean, when I was at that high school and it didn't have air conditioning in the summer, it was like boot camp. I don't want to say it was boot camp because it wasn't that bad, because I imagine that's a whole lot worse, but that was your freshman training ground. Is you were there in the middle of summer, and you hope people brought in box fans to keep you cool. But
and all they did was move the heater.
Yep, pretty much. Yeah. So, but anyway, turn it over to the board, Miss Brittany.
Yeah, so thank you, Mr. Evans, for the resolution. I think it's a really good conversation that we can have. I wanted to do my due diligence ahead of this meeting, so I reached out to both White House High and Merrill High to understand what commitment those organizations have made. I wanted to read just a little bit of context. So when we're talking about Merrill Hyde, if I'm not mistaken, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is the only school in the county that actually has a sports requirement. So from 7th grade on, you are required to participate in a sport at Merrill Hyde. So the Booster Club was born out of that. They support 17 different school-approved club sports. They have an annual budget of roughly about $60,000, and they run completely debt-free. That is a commitment that they have made to the parents, is to run a balanced budget and to be fiscally responsible, which I think is something that we can all recognize as important and a good plan that we don't want to ignore. So In addition to supporting those sports, they also allocate money for senior recognition, for scholarships for students. For each sport, that has 85% of their students involved in the Booster Club, they support those sports. They maintain the soccer complex, roughly about $15,000 each year, plus labor of parents and volunteers. And I think we all remember just last month we recognized they're a multi-state winning sports team, our soccer club there at Merrill Hyde. In the last 5 years, that group has completely refinished both gym floors, replaced scoreboards in both gyms, installed adjustable basketball goals in the lower gym for elementary students, funded a new mower for the soccer field. And some of that funding was allocated as athletic capital money from the district as well for those. But they have never borrowed money or assumed debt for any of the work that they do. So I've got a whole more listed here that I can go through if you want me to, but I think what I'd like to bring up is in addition to that resolution, I'd love to see, knowing that we have Portland, knowing that we have White House High, knowing that we have Merrill Hyde that have, I think there was one more that have never, Gallatin, thank you, they've never assumed debt. I'd like to add the text, be it further resolved that in the interest of fairness and equality, the Sumner County Board of Education encourages the Sumner County Commission to allocate an equal payment to all of the booster programs that have not incurred debt but have contributed significant private funds, labor, or resources towards athletic facility improvements. These programs have proactively supported their schools without assuming financial liabilities, and they should be equally recognized in their commitment to enhancing student-athlete experiences across Sumner County schools. That's my suggestion.
Thank you. Mr. Lancaster.
So I got a question on just how this all, what the process is, not the resolution, but so if a school, decides, hey, we're going to build a new new practice facility, how in the past has that gone about as far as like the Booster Club says, all right, well, we're going to spend $500,000 on this and we're going to go together and borrow the money, but they're still building a building on school property. So how does that get approved? And who does the approving? And what's that process like?
Yeah, so I think it would depend on which decade you're talking about, because for much of Sumner County history, you just got a group of dads together and they started laying block, and then they figured out how to pay for it and they bought the block as they went. But I would say, like, if you say like the last 10 or 15 years, if you take like the field turf at Beach, Ms. Brown, you can jump in here because you were more on the, basically, like, I think what you saw happen a lot more since we started giving the capital is you would see a joint effort between a booster club and the school system. Like, we would say, we're going to give you $200,000 in capital next year, and you would say, well, our quarterback club is going to put up $200,000 and we're going to do this. The quarterback club could put that up however they wanted. If they had $200,000, they could just put it in, but if they wanted to borrow it, they could, because it's a separate 501c3. I think moving forward, I would love for us to be in a place where we get out of the business of expecting 501c3 student support organizations to fund the building of athletic facilities. Because I think, like Ms. Brady, to your point, like, there's a cost that's going to only go up in the future, which is mowing. Because, like, 4 generations of football coaches largely grew up on farms. They knew how to fix tractors, and they liked to mow. A new generation of coaches does not want to commit from their family life an additional 10, 15, 20 hours a week to mow in addition to teaching and coaching. So that cost is only going to go up for school support organizations. To me, what I would like to see, and I think Ms. Brown's team has done, as you saw in the audit part earlier, what they've done a great job of pushing schools to do is use the instructional money that we give you, but also use PTO and other money to do things that really enrich the experience of kids, not to provide for the basic needs of the kid. Where, the same thing, Mr. Lancaster, to your point, the same thing was true 20 years ago in Sumner County Schools. We were raising, when I came back in 2009, we were doing, cookie dough sales and magazine sales to buy copy paper. We've moved away from that, and it's time to do the same thing in athletic facilities. So I think that's, so I think you're really like, this debt to me represents the closing of an era where we expected quarterback clubs or school support organizations to carry the brunt of the debt to build athletic facilities.
And really, what I'm trying to get at is I'm not trying to necessarily say, hey, I don't like this idea or anything like that. I'm trying to say, how do we make sure we are aware of what these schools or these sport organizations are taking on, but we don't get 10 years down the road and we're sitting here talking about this, somebody else is sitting here talking about this. Hopefully it won't be me.
Board policies that.
Yeah.
But we have a policy that somebody would have to get this approved, like.
Yes.
Okay.
So we had a situation a couple years back that initiated a policy that anything that's a permanent, I think how it's worded, a permanent fixture to our building has to be board approved. So someone now can't just go decide and throw up a
follow-up question, because I would
Correct.
assume that's, you've got the maintenance and also the liability of anything that happens in
Correct.
that building or whatever.
So even if the school board is not contributing funds, but a PTO or a school support organization decides they want to do something, not everything a school support organization decides that we want to do may be something that the board does want to pay for. I mean, that may not be your will, and so, but that doesn't mean you're not okay with them proceeding. But we do require those to be board approved. So we are, as a board and a district, say, yes, we do approve this project to go on to our campuses, because we have had that in past, not so.
Yeah, I think it was outside athletics. We had a school that an SSO raised money to build a barn, but didn't check with anyone, and the principal and the district were like, no, there's not, like, the campus you didn't really have a good place to put a barn. It was going to be hard to maintain, hard to keep up. And so, even though they had, I think where we are now, Mr. Lancaster, is I think that we have much better communication between, like, Ms. Hall and the treasurer of each of the SSOs. We have better reporting, and principals are much more aligned with what's going on.
And like, I mean,
Go through that principal. So it's working with that principal. Usually the principal's going to say, do we want that on our school campus? And then obviously proceed towards the board after that.
are these debts, like, for example, is the building, does the bank have a lien on that building, like, or how, I mean, I would not think that would be possible to have a lien on something that was on somebody.
No, I don't think so. I think it's individuals usually sign for the debt. So for instance, like I know for like Westmoreland.
So these have to be personal debt. So like if you don't pay, if Beach doesn't pay for the field, they're not gonna come and take up.
Now, Beaches would be different because Beach probably has the most developed students, like the 501c3 that they have with the foundation. It's they've got a totally different separate funding arm. Whereas, like, I think some smaller schools would have like 5 or 10 individuals that would sign personal notes to guarantee the debt.
Yeah, there's just some weird, like, legal and contract.
It's just why I would really like to get out of the business.
Well, I agree, but I just also want to make sure we can, if there's any way possible, we make sure we can not have this happen in the future, because
yes, I 100% agree.
When I first started, I think the first phone call I got was from Station Camp's quarterback club president a couple of years ago, and he was like, of course Liberty Creek had just been built and they had their practice facility, and the whole thing was, we still don't have the debt. I was like, how do you have the debt on a building on, I just, dumb me, I didn't realize that was even possible that you could do that.
I mean, I'll be honest, like I think every athletic facility in Sumner County until Station Camp High School and then Liberty Creek, every school facility in Sumner County was built that way. I can remember Beach High School when they burned the note for the home side bleachers.
Well, and one other thing I think it's important to mention is when we do the projects, you have to have the bond money available because you can't take on large projects without the bond. And so that's where some of the requirements are in place in the policy to make sure that when we start a project, we can finish that project. Because I think we had issues in the past where projects were started. I think there were lights at one point where I think parents were trying to put something up and couldn't finish the project, and then we had to step in and try to finish that too. So I think it's more than just taking out a loan, it's making sure that the projects are done the right way and that the funding is there to finish the project once it's started. So.
Yeah, and I think that's the way I tried to explain to the education committee last night is like, this is really the closing of an era. I don't think you're going to see, because one of the questions we had that I thought was a good question is, they paid off a significant amount of debt for school support organizations about 10, 12 years ago. The commission did. And they said, well, if we do it this year, we're just going to have like a 10-year jubilee where we're going to pay off all the school debts. And I was like, I really think, Mr. Lancaster, I think for the points that you raise, I really think once we see, the 3 stadiums that we're building now and the tracks that we're building and the tennis courts, the quality of the build and the efficiency with it, I think, the expectation moving forward, which is what we said when we did it. We said we wanted to lift all of our facilities up to Liberty Creek style standards. Is what we see though is that expectation is going to be, like this time Portland was thrilled to get the bathroom, right? And I'm thankful. Like I got texts from people in Portland because the bleachers at Portland are 95% done on the home side, and I got text today said these new bleachers are huge and awesome, right? But a future generation of Portland parents is not going to come from the mindset of the last 20 or 30 years, and I could replace Portland with White House or Westmoreland or Gallatin or anybody in the county. They're going to have the expectation that their kids receive the same thing, and I think that will kind of take care of itself. So I think we're closing an era.
And to Mr. Evans' point, we also require those funds to be deposited at in our office now. And so if it is a combined project, county and booster or just booster, before we allow those projects to be board approved, we have to ensure that money is here because of exactly what Mr. Daniels mentioned. There was some projects started that they weren't able to finish. So,
Mr. Evans?
Yeah, I mean, really, the thought process for this, and I don't know what you're talking about, but that's the whole point. Let's discuss this. Was the fact that it got my mind thinking about how many of these parents that started these projects. We're talking about years ago. I would argue we're talking probably while I was in high school. They started these projects. They took on this debt. Their kids are out of the schools. They're not even living here anymore. Some of us are coming back. The reality is, like, when we're building this stuff like we are right now, there's so many legal parameters we have to go through to get these things built and up to code. I argue that a lot of this debt, if we figured out what it was actually attached to, I would bet that a lot of that was not done 100% kosher, outside of just the people funding it. So there is the opposite side too. We're like, okay, we're talking about people here. That's where I'm trying to get to. Like, we're taking care of families. We're taking care of people that really cared about our communities and our kids and our teams to the point where they took out significant financial decisions. I know we're also setting a precedent here from a school board perspective of like, do we just continually try to support, I wouldn't say bad financial decisions, but financial decisions like this? We're trying to get away from that. And that's what, to me, it's not just a clean slate. Everybody gets a handout and everybody gets the equal amount. I'm not necessarily saying that. I'm looking at the reality is a lot of this debt has probably just been sitting around, and all it's being done, and I know because I've seen this even at the city, and I'm not there anymore, so I can say this, but you're basically just moving money out of one account and putting it in another account. All you're doing is robbing Peter to pay Paul. We're not actually getting into a solution. And so what the whole thought process was with this, when I went and met with Principal Duffer, was I hate it for those 10 families. I also think that we should know what 10 families are getting the benefit of this. Let's be real. There's some real, from a legal perspective, I think we are supposed to get, who these people are going to benefit from these financial decisions. But that was the thought process.
Let me just point out that the we in this scenario is the county commission. And I think that's the important thing to keep in mind here is that this is something that they can do that the school board can't do. And I'm trying to thinking about, just as I've talked to the principals of schools that have debt, is to think like, we need to be realistic because they have a whole set of budget expectations coming into the mix, in the next few months too.
When I say we, I mean Sumner County.
I agree.
I'm talking about people that are watching this, people that are going to be. I'm talking about us as
Yeah.
citizens and humans.
No, I just want to, I want to be clear that it's not something that, I agree with you, it's for the good of the kids of Sumner County, the citizens of Sumner County. It's just that it's something that we have to ask the county commission to do because we can't legally do that.
Correct.
So that's all I'm saying.
And that was the whole point of the resolution. Was I know that we are not making the financial decision. That is ultimately up to them. But I do think that as we're trying to work with them, and in reality, like you said, we're getting ready to prepare for a budget cycle. This was the time to present this after hearing what it looks like. This was the time to present that. So that's the thought process.
Mr. Hollis?
Thank you. So a couple of things for District 6, when I started getting calls around this, when I saw it was going to come out, and we're talking about Gallatin High School and Merrill Hyde students and Station Camp, and some of the I'll just share some of the comments of what is the thought process. Obviously, some areas are more affluent than others. So these groups or quarterback clubs will be able to raise significantly more money in one area than they will for another. So I think that's a pretty given thing. However, everybody has the capacity to do it, and some comments I heard were kind of in line with Megan, where it's like, well, we raised the money, we spent it, we didn't go in deep into debt. If we'd have known y'all were going to pay this off, we'd have built our own new stadium, or I'm being a little flippant, but that was kind of some of the comments. And then it was, I guess the general feeling that I was getting was it just didn't seem fair. As if you want to be equitable, and okay, I was like, okay, how would you support this? I was trying to see the pros and cons. Like, there are pros and there's cons on both sides of this, and it was like, well, if you pay off, say they get $200,000 they paid off, we'll take that out of their athletic budget over the next 10 years or something, and equate it out that way. I don't know, but I'm just sharing some of the comments that I heard, and probably the most egregious were from the Gallatin crew.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, and I think that's where it's really important to delineate that this is not a school board action.
Right. Yeah.
We're asking, because, we couldn't, I don't think we'd be in a position where we could take it out of their, because we honestly don't give them an athletic budget. Most of that's generated internally. But, if we gave, and we've kind of shifted away because we've had so many big projects, we haven't been giving individual schools the capital like we did, because we've done that before. Like if, like if a school had something that they were going big on, we've given them an extra $50,000, and then we just deducted that out the next year so that you could stage the project and get it going and not wait. But I think it's like, I truthfully think, I think that, some of the other schools, I think Gallatin could absolutely make probably the best case of, we spent $250,000, $300,000 of our money to pay for the visitor side bleachers. I think that's a very valid point, because they didn't do some of the things other schools did. But the flip side too is we've tried to also go back and take care of Gallatin. And I think you get into, what I suggested to the education committee and in private conversation with commissioners is like, you got to decide if it's something that's good to do for the county, to go back to Mr. Evans' point, to close out an era. Because if you get into the tit for tat, there was a time when everybody had to struggle with the fact that they had a flat surface with rocks on it, and they had to build the question is, was it in the 60s for Hendersonville, the 80s for Beach, the 40s and 50s for, I think that's the hard part to weigh out. At the end of the day, to me, it's like, it's a gift from the county commission that we'd be very appreciative of, in addition to the $5.4 million that they gave us at the start of the year. It's a gift that we would be really appreciative of, that'd be good for Sumner County, and it would help us, to look at things differently for other schools as we move forward. But yeah, I agree, Mr. House, and I think I would say because I'm a White House boy, I've almost had no one the whole time I've been up here complain about any decision or anything from White House, and I've heard more about, hey, we didn't get anything. But that's why I'm going to go up and try to speak to the quarterback club, because at the same time, if I have no doubt that if we had $80 million sitting here for athletic facilities, we would spend the money to take care of every school in Sumner County. But we don't have $80 million, and we've got a lot of other needs too, and we have to kind of weigh that out, and that's what I've tried to communicate. But yeah, I 100% agree.
Ms. Barnes?
Yeah, I won't beat a dead horse, but I will, as far as my district, I've heard some of the same concerns, question, especially from our athletic boosters, of, okay, we were conservative with our spends, with our, our, what we did go in debt for. I think they went in debt for a turf about 10 years ago, replacing. So just to repeat or echo, I think there has to be something equitable between these, especially for these boosters that worked hard and worked their communities. And this is all, they're giving their time, they're giving their, I just feel like there needs to be something if we're going to pay off, all of these loans across the county for different schools that, chose for, at that time, for whatever reason, to, commit to these loans and this debt. I understand these parents, trying to have the best facilities, giving these kids these opportunities. But somewhere, to me, there has to be a balance with it. The one question I had, and I agree, I think it's time to move away from this, but how do we differentiate what the boosters pay for or fundraise for and then pay for, and then what the schools?
Yeah. And I think, Ms. Martin, I think that evolves. If I jump out of athletic facilities, let's talk, because this will be something we'll talk about in budget. Like, we used to do technology this way, right? Like, when Dr. Phillips came, we spent $25,000 as a district on technology. When I started teaching at White House High School in 2009, the English department was responsible for buying my computer. We had $300. I went to Walmart, I bought a $287 computer that lasted about 6 months, and I just used my personal laptop for the rest of the time I taught. We're in a place now where, the way that we invested our ESSER money, we realized that we had to become mobile. And so we shifted, like, you don't go into schools anymore and really see only like kind of one-off computer labs for things like graphic arts or things like that. Everything else is mobile. But what we have done is we have elevated the technology capacity of our schools to the point that that's not going to be something like, we give a district device fund each year to each school that's funded on a formula. So let's say an average size high school gets somewhere between $18,000 and $22,000. That's not enough money to replenish and stay current with the technology that we provided them. We're going to have to shift and this is some of this is a growing pain. Like, Sumner County is the 8th largest school district in Tennessee, but for most of our history, we thought we were a small country school district because we grew up around towns, which is what I think makes Sumner County really distinctive and wonderful. But we are the 8th largest school district, and I think the 4th or 5th most affluent school district in Tennessee now. And we have to think a little differently, and we're going to see that shift, like in technology. And I think, because I've heard the same things I think that Mr. Hollis said and that you're saying. And I guess the way that I've started thinking about it is if we look at this in its totality, like last year when the bleachers at Beach collapsed, we put together a plan. We met with stakeholders from every community and we put together a comprehensive plan. We knew that the very first 3 things we had to do were Hendersonville High School, Beach High School, and Portland High School. And everybody was on board for that. The question now is, how do we look at it in its totality? So, now we're coming back and we're adding Station Camp. Station Camp desperately needed that football field redone. New irrigation, new track. Gallatin High School desperately needed a track. But those tracks don't just benefit those schools. They increase our capacity district-wide, because like right now, we have almost every track athlete in Sumner County is running, not this year because of the work in Hendersonville, but Hendersonville High School and Liberty Creek and Station Camp to a smaller extent. So we're increasing our capacity step by step. The tennis courts that we're adding at Merrill Hyde benefit Merrill Hyde, but they also benefit Beach and White House because they can practice and use those facilities too. We're going to have to come back at some point and do some tennis courts in Portland. I'm really excited about this run for the bid of tennis courts, because tennis courts are crazy expensive. But you have to have 4 to be able to compete, and we desperately need that. So I think we're going to look a little bit more at regional locations of athletic facilities, but on campus wherever possible. At some point we'll go back and we'll put a stadium on campus at Portland. We'll put a stadium on campus at White House. put a stadium on campus at Gallatin. We'll have to look at, some of this will be affected by how we look at long-term, the viability of campuses, because at a certain point you have to say, is this campus still where the school needs to be located? You look at Portland. Portland's got a great campus with a lot of land, room to grow. We've got that, thankfully, in most of our places. Hendersonville is our tightest, our most geographically bound campus. But we've got a great arrangement with the city of Hendersonville, and I think you'll see more opportunities to share, I think, with Gallatin, city of Gallatin too, to share some things. I've heard some rumblings of a cross-country course that we could do in Gallatin and maybe kind of partner like we did with the Hendersonville baseball building, and then that would dramatically lift the burden that's on Hendersonville back on the peninsula where we do everything right now. I think we have to kind of step back and look at the totality of everything instead of focusing like on what am I getting right now, or and I'm not saying, I really don't think anybody's doing that. I do think that there's been a little bit, like I've encouraged everybody I've talked to, when you go to the commission and you speak, don't say, we haven't gotten anything. Say, we're in favor of this, but we would like, I think it's perfectly fine to go and advocate at the county commission to say, hey, I'm in White House, I'm in Portland, I'm in I'm in Gallatin, I'm at Merrill Hyde, and we didn't receive anything. But I think even there, it's like, I think if you look at the slides and everything, every school has received quite a bit of stuff. It's just every school has quite a bit of needs that we've just got to slowly address. And we're in that transition, like we're talking about technology, where we're going from thinking about funding everything at the school level, and a lot of times having a nickel and dime things. We only had nickels and dimes, to saying, hey, we're gonna make the decision to go one-to-one in iPads. There was a huge infrastructure lift to even be able to go one-to-one with iPads. Now we're looking at, hey, you know what we really want? We want all of our first-year teachers, when they walk into the school district, the best experience they're going to have for us to support and retain them is when they go to their first day of training, that they get their computer and it's ready to open and turn on. That's a huge lift that we've never been able to do in the past, because now we have the infrastructure, we've got the tech support, we've got finance and HR, and everybody streamlined and working together on those things. And I think that's the kind of thing, to me, that's like, I know a lot of you did TSBA training. One of the conversations was strategic planning. I think that's a topic where that's district level strategic planning initiative to put together like a comprehensive athletic facilities, not just athletic, but all facilities plan looking forward out 20, 25 years. And then everybody can see. I think the biggest thing that will happen, I think, when we put the wrap on the Portland Stadium and you can see what it looks like, the press box gets here either later this week or next week, I think people will be able to see it. I think the problem is we've never done anything like this in Sumner County before, and it's hard to believe that it's going to happen. But when you get that beach complex built and that Hendersonville complex built, the tennis courts at Merrill Hyde, the tracks at Gallatin, because it's not just a track, it's a track in the stadium at Gallatin, it's a track and update the football field at Station Camp. I think it just becomes more believable that people put more cachet in what we're saying. And I think it's like, after 2 years, 3 years of open political warfare in Sumner County, to have the opportunity to come together at the commission and school board and say, let's do something really positive for our kids as we move from one year to the other, I think is also, that's kind of where I am. But I 100%, because I think like Portland, I think they paid off their debt like not that long ago. And it's like if they could have stalled payments and had a chance to get this paid off here and then use that $60,000 or whatever for the very legitimate needs that Portland High School has right now. So I understand it. I just think we're moving in a direction where we're just having to own that there's the closing out of one era of Sumner County and the opening of another, and there's a little bit of an opportunity cost to close that out and just move forward.
And before I move over to Ms. Stewart, I think the other thing is when you look at the building campaign that we did back starting in 2013, and I was on the board when that all came to pass. I may be the only one. I think Hayes came in a little bit after we approved that, but that was primarily for not athletic facilities, but the buildings. Mm-hmm. Because at that time there was a lot of talk about, hey, we need new high schools, we need new middle schools. And I remember sitting in the meeting and Dr. Phillips said, you know, when you build one of those new facilities, a lot of what you're building is core space. It's for cafeterias, it's for office space, it's bathrooms, and you already have those. It's more cost effective to add on where you had the ability to add on these additional wings, these additional buildings. And so a lot of that initial lump sum, that 70 million, when you look at those first couple slides that Dr. Langford shared a little bit earlier, and you look at the, you know, 3.1 or 4.1 at Gallatin and the, you know, 12 at Beach and the, you know, 8 at White House, that was to get those facilities up to spec. And that was, you know, in the last 8 to 10 years. And so, you know, really before you could even start to look at athletic facilities, you needed to take care of the spaces where we taught the kids, where they learned, make sure the classrooms and the equipment and the technology was what they needed. And now I think the collapse of the bleachers at Beach kind of spurred this next conversation of, okay, we've really addressed a lot of the building spaces, so where's the next big focus need to be? And it seems to be, from a facility standpoint, the next biggest area is athletic facilities, because you have to have facilities for the kids to play. And the question is, what does that look like? And then you look at the other schools and when they were built, and their age and the different situations they're in from a landlocked standpoint, or where their facilities are located, and each school has unique needs. And I think, to your point, the vision and the planning and the strategic look at what we do next, it's not just saying, hey, let's give Gallatin $300,000. I'm all for it. I take it right now, right? But how are we going to use it? What's the most important use of that money? And then how can we build that in to get that first piece and that next piece and that next piece? I know we need a baseball building, but, you know, if you're moving a football stadium over to the campus, then why are you investing millions of dollars in a home site over here when you can do a smaller project to have a historical stadium that maybe can be used for other events, but you're building out a home site at Gallatin High School that's in line and in par with what you see at Beach and Hendersonville to meet those needs on campus, and what you do with the baseball stadium, the baseball facilities. And so it's a much larger conversation than just saying, hey, let's put $300 in this account. It also runs into the situation of, you know, the county commission can pay off debt. We can't. But where does the other money for these other schools go? Is it into capital projects? Is that something that's budgeted and set aside for that in future years? So it's a much larger conversation around that. I support everything about asking for more money for our athletic facilities and our athletic programs, because I think all the schools that have paid off their debt and those that are in debt right now could use the funding to do some great things or to take care of what they already have. And that opens the door to other projects that money can be used for those schools that maybe don't have debt right now. So
yeah, and I think that, likewise, I'm sorry, Mr. Daniels, just to piggyback off you, I think if we have that big picture strategic plan on capital projects and athletic facilities and everything tied together, if we're building a school, it's really easy to see, like, you know, we won't be able to build a high school or anything like that without doing a bond. You just can't. You could possibly build an elementary school. Like, we could have built an elementary school. White House Intermediate was about 25 million-ish. You know, we could have funded that with what we did with stadiums, right? But generally, when you build schools, that's going to be on bond, because you're talking about a 50 or 100-year property. So we built a high school. You know, it would be easy to say, like, I think one of the things I learned from Liberty Creek is we could have put some of these projects on there in a bond, and we could have knocked out, and, you know, where we weren't, you know, we could have lifted the whole county at once. But that's hindsight, you know. Yeah. That's just, we learn each time we do a project. Beach and White House High were the two of the first in that run of renovation projects. We learned so much in those two projects that benefited the future renovation projects. And we'll do the same thing when we build these first 3 stadiums. We will learn tremendously when we build these first 2 tracks, these tennis courts. We'll learn lessons from that that'll make our next build better.
Ms. Stewart?
Okay, you have answered some of the questions, but I want to understand, Ms. Brown, did you tell us that from this point forward that the county will not continue to, no, we will not be able to pay off the debt of the PTOs or the booster clubs or whatever? There's some kind of rule that you're making that.
We've not ever been able to pay off.
It's illegal.
Yes.
The school board.
No, I don't mean me. I mean county commission. I'm sorry. But is there, I mean, is this going to continue? Or is there a way to, with the county commission, is there a way to set a precedent where they're not going back every 10 years and asking, oh, you know, we borrowed this money?
Yeah, I think that, Sarah, I think that the process will change. Like, I think this is the end of an era. Like, they could always do it, and there would be nothing that would stop a quarterback club, like, if we approved it, as Ms. Brown pointed, like, for a fixed building. But, I mean, it would be controlled by us approving a fixed product where a quarterback club was taking on debt. You know, I wouldn't say that it's universally impossible that would ever happen, because, you know, the moment you say that, then there's something that presents itself that we want to do. But I would be very shocked if we're sitting here in 10 years and there are student support organizations with debt, because I just think we've moved to a different place. And honestly, we will have covered a significant number of the athletic facilities. You'd really be talking about maybe like, you know, multi-purpose places, you know, like what Liberty Creek has, or, you know, where you're sharing space, because we're going to be constrained eventually by land, and some certain school camps we're going to have to be more creative.
Well, and I know some of them are probably gun shy at this point, and I get that. I'm like Wade saying financial responsibility, be a little more responsible. But some of the calls that I have had, and even visiting grocery stores and all that, there's other issues besides athletic facilities, theater and cheerleaders and technology, and you've touched some of that. But I mean, is that something where, and I say PTOs and everybody else would go out and raise money and do all that for those too, but is that in budget works? And
yeah, so, you know, we gave each middle school band $100,000 last year. That was the biggest investment school board voted. It was about 1.2 something million that we gave to middle school bands. We give schools a significant amount of instructional money. We gave the high schools 60 grand, and we had some high schools that had just invested a lot in band, so we let them spend their 60 on other things, but most of our high schools spent the 60,000 we gave them last year on band. But, you know, the good thing about band and chorus and theater and things like that is schools can pay for that out of their instructional funds, where you can't pay for anything out of sports. Now, I would say that, you know, like last year, for the money that we spent on athletic facilities, we spent $14.4 million on capital items at the school level, and then this year, I'll have to get you a number on it, but it's not 14.4, but it's probably 6 or 7 million that we're spending on non-athletic facility type items that are HVACs, roofing, things like that. You know, a lot of the capital that's gone to the schools, if you look at that list, there were investments in auditorium sound systems and different things like that. I think that those are things. Now, I think that the area where what we're realizing now, one of the big projects that we're working on is, we've never, like, you know, I know we're late in the hour, so I'll try to go fast with this, but we were never, like, generations of principals were tossed the keys and said, stay off the news. You know, what we're realizing now is that the job of the principal is very complicated. I mean, you know, a high school principal manages an entire city block. The instructional product, the business product, the safety product, everything. That requires a lot of support. And, you know, there's always going to be something that they're not as talented at. I think that one of the areas where we can support them, what we've talked, you know, we're early in this conversation about, I know Ms. Brown and Ms. Skinner and I've had some conversations like, let's put some things together to show principals where they can spend their instructional dollars. You know, to say like, hey, here's a package where you can upgrade the sound system and microphones and everything in your auditorium. Here's something, you know, like the first run of $50,000 of capital we got, my band director wanted this big filing cabinet, and it was $8,000. And, you know, I told him, I'm like, we're going to buy this, but when I get attacked for buying a filing cabinet for $8,000, you're going to defend me and have my back. But the reality was, it dramatically extended the life of the sheet music, because the sheet music was longer than a regular filing cabinet, and the music got damaged in the way that it was folded up. So it made sense to get that, because it was a great investment to preserve, you know, and chorus could use it too. It was helpful on multiple fronts. So I think that there's some support in other areas other than just instruction that we can provide to principals that will help them understand better ways that they can use and allocate. Because I'll be honest, like, The only thing that I remember ever saying no to that a teacher asked me for an instructional product was I had a teacher that wanted hardback copies of To Kill a Mockingbird, and they were $22 each, and we could buy paperback copies for $3. I was like, just buy the paperback copies, we'll give them to the kids each semester. Let them write in them and keep them. That's the only thing I remember ever saying no to.
Okay, one more, such as Gallatin High School, who says they don't have any debt, but they've paid it off. Are they gonna be allowed to go back and say, we want you to pay off this much of ours,
That's
you
what-
know, and we'll get our money back in our pocket? Is that,
I think that would be.
is that gonna be
You,
fair?
I mean, at a certain point, the commission's just going to say, this is such a mess, we're not going to pay anything, we're just going to move on. I think, and that's where I think you got to look at the totality of the big picture. Because if you think about, like, I'll say this for Gallatin, you know, we've invested significantly in Gallatin over the last couple of years. We're building a track that will probably come in, hopefully around $3 million on Thursday. And we've got big plans, you know, and I do think that that's where if we had now that we've gotten through the initial shock of the stadiums from last year, if we can do some longer term planning, it's a little easier to say to Gallatin, hey, you're not going to catch anything on this run. You know, you're getting the track and you're getting, you know, upgraded things like fencing and stuff and lights on the football field. But here's what's next, and here's what's next after that, and here's what's next after that. I think what you have right now that I think is very fair from Gallatin is we've been told this before for 50 years. And we're not going to believe it until we see it. And I think that is incredibly fair. And everybody I've talked to from Gallatin said, hey, I get it. Like, I mean, you know, I grew up in White House. The county truck of money never showed up at White House when I was a kid. We built everything that we had. But I just think that's part of that transition of building relationships and building trust and saying, hey, we're going to say we're going to do this, and you're going to see we're going to do it.
And I think the other part to that is as we've continued to grow from a county standpoint, you know, kids that would have gone to Gallatin are now at Station Camp in Liberty Creek. And so they look and see, hey, here's kids that would have been here otherwise if not for these new schools. And now they've got the new bright, shiny things. And I think there's some frustration around that as well. But
100%.
They all want to Liberty Creek.
Yeah.
Is that what we offer all of them?
I'm going to jump over. I know we've got to wrap at 9 because it's study session. So I'm going to jump to Mr. King first. I know you haven't had a chance to speak yet, so I'm going to go to you, and then if we have time, I'll jump back to Mr. Evans.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just wanted to shed some light on this. So Mr. Duffer, principal at Westmoreland, he made the request not for all of his debt to be paid back. So he did not go into the county commission and say, I want all my debt paid off. He was very specific. He very targeted in his ask, in his request, and that was for the field house. And he has baseball debt too, as you guys know on here. He's fine to keep paying for them to keep paying that. And so his request was simply, we want some help on this field house. And I think since then, what has happened is that has been leveraged. That request has been leveraged to, to pay off all debt now, and it's really blown up into this omnibus package. And why? Why is that? And the reason is because now we have these words get like people feeling left out. This is not fair. It's a slippery slope. It establishes a bad precedent. And when I'm looking at this, I'm thinking about fairness, but I'm also thinking about this. The reasoning behind this is, well, it's gonna be a bad precedent to pay off debt, and then we're hearing all the scenarios right now. We're hearing, well, can I do this in the future and will they pay it back? Or, someone said, can I go borrow money today and then will they pay it off at the commission meeting in 2 weeks? So I think Westmoreland's request, if we're really thinking about what is going to set a more, I don't want to say dangerous, but risky precedent slippery slope. What is a bigger slippery slope? Is it a one-time reimbursement for a field house, or is it just across the board paying off 1.2 million in booster club debt? And to me, I think the less slippery slope is to go with a one-time reimbursement for their field house. And if you take some time to learn about what transpired with that field house and how this request came together, the field house was deteriorating. Some have even said water was getting backlogged into it, raw sewage was getting backed up into it. It was a hazard. They had saved about $600,000 through money the board had given them, but it was in such a condition that they had to act right then. But they were about $300,000 short. So they got 10 citizens got together and signed a note for the rest of that, for that $300,000, and they were able to build that field house. And so, to me, that's a very unique situation, and it's a facility. It's not travel expenses. It's not equipment. They paid a bunch of that down. It's now at like 270 or 274, I think. And so to me, the greater slippery slope would be to just give everyone 1.2 million, just pay it all off. And now we've already got a potential amendment coming in the next meeting to, I guess, give everyone an equal amount of debt. So Beach has 464,000. So I guess that amendment is going to be to give every school that does not have any debt to just give them 464,000. So again, that is a slippery slope. That's where we're heading. If I was Westmoreland, it has to be really hard. We're talking about fairness, and we're talking about what's fair and people feeling left out. To me, if I was Westmoreland, it would be very difficult for me to sit back and watch all these other schools get facility after facility, one after another, paid for outright with millions of dollars, without any burden to their booster clubs at all. But yet, Westmoreland, they have to keep paying this debt on a field house because of a technicality. And that technicality is that it is, quote, booster debt. Okay, that's the technicality. And so they're stuck paying for this. Now, the mistake they made was paying for this themselves. Had they not paid for it themselves, we would have funded this, and the Board of Education would have paid for this. That is a fact. That is the reality. And the reason I know that is because just recently we approved a $500,000 indoor baseball facility for Hendersonville High School. Case in point, back in August, their dugout club was announcing that they needed to raise funds for this indoor baseball facility, and they were looking to do fundraising. Well, we stepped in to pay for that cost. In addition to that, we've been told several times that the Iron Bunker at Hendersonville High School, the current football building, is that the Board of Education, we are going to pay for that to get a complete renovation and to convert that into an all-girls dance, cheer, and athletic facility, without burdening those booster clubs. Those booster clubs are not going to have to pay a dime. They won't. The dugout club, they'll pay for equipment, I assume, for their baseball facility that we paid for them. I assume that perhaps when the Iron Bunker building is converted for all girls athletics, we'll pay for all of that, and the booster clubs. Those booster clubs will pay for their equipment and other things. So there's two angles here. There's angles of fairness and equitable. We were talking about equitable. That's another word that got thrown around. Beach got $9 million. Hendersonville another $9 million plus. Well, that includes the indoor baseball facility for stadiums. Portland over $2 million. Gallatin's going to get a track for $3 million now. The cost has gone up. $3 million. Station Camp's track is at $2 million. Tennis courts at Merrill Hyde. We're looking at, and I keep hearing all this other stuff about tennis courts in other parts of the county, northern part of the county. These schools and these facilities, which would have normally been covered now by booster clubs, they're not burdened with that. They don't have to build a stadium. They don't have to build a tennis court. They didn't even have to build an indoor baseball facility. So for Westmoreland, for these citizens who are sitting by and watching all this take place, for them to be told that, well, we're not going to pay off the debt on your field house because that would be a slippery slope, or that would be unfair, or people would be left out, and well, if we give you $274,000, then we should just give White House $274,000. They don't even have debt, but let's just give them that amount. So I think we're getting way too far into the weeds here. I think that if we limit this to just Westmoreland and their simple request, if we redo this resolution just for their request, I think that that's going to present less of a slippery slope, and I think it would be a good thing. And we can talk about other debt in the future, but I think a one-time reimbursement for their field house is in line with this new standard that we have set, where booster clubs are no longer they're no longer on the hook for building these facilities. And it's interesting that when they built this, they asked Del Phillips for the money. They said, look, we need $300,000, and he said, no, we don't have it. We don't have the money. We can't justify spending any money on athletics. That to me is just that's really strange, because they had money. We've had a surplus every year going back a decade. It's not that they didn't have the money. Dr. Phillips didn't want to spend the money on athletics. There's a difference. So what did they do? They took matters into their own hands. Same thing with the Gallatin visitor side. Del Phillips told them that he was not going to give them any money for that either, and there was money for that. So to me, we are just correcting the record on this. We're gonna reimburse Westmoreland, because to me it was an oversight that they did not get $300,000 from the Board of Education back when they requested it. So I think we are righting that wrong, and I don't think it sets a bad precedent. And I find it interesting. I find it really disappointing when somebody, if anyone from a school that's gotten $9 million, $3 million, $2 million, several $1 million in athletic facilities, for anyone to say, well, we ought to get what Westmoreland's getting if they're getting their field house taken care of. That, to me, that's a disgrace, because these schools are getting millions upon millions of dollars. Again, I think a one-time investment, one-time reimbursement for the field house is entirely reasonable. And so I would like to, I will be bringing that amendment at our meeting on the 18th. Thank you.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. This is because we can't take any action on this. This is the county commission. So we are resolving. So we're sending a suggestion, correct? So this is a work in progress. We'll address this again at the next meeting. Okay. Back on the slide, you had two different amounts for the schools. So one was a district amount given, and then the other was the Booster Club
Yes.
funding. How much was Westmoreland's district amount?
Let's see.
And tell me over what time period that is. That total was from,
Let's see, the district chipped in 994,000 to Westmoreland. Most of the other schools, it was 850,000.
so Westmoreland was the most
Yes.
that got from the district level. Is this football field house all of this is a bank loan? There's a note taken out for this?
The debt, my understanding is the debt is held by 501c3 through their booster club.
So they're just certain individuals, a number of people?
I think that certain individuals are backing the note.
Gotcha. When the Stephen Chauncey Fieldhouse at Harrisville High School was built, we were one of the donations. I had no expectation that I was going to be reimbursed for that money. Of course, that was how many years ago? Wade, when community members gave toward that. Had no expectation that was ever going to, it went toward that field house, and that's great. That's what we wanted it to go to. So, thank you for the clarification that Westmoreland got the 900 and something. And we'll keep working on this resolution. Correct.
Mr. King?
Thank you.
Yeah, they got an extra 100,000, but Beach just got 9 million. Hendersonville just got 9 million. Gallatin just got 3 million. We're about to bid on that. We're about to approve that next week. And Station Camp 2 million. So I just don't know if we can really say, well, again, it's a different interpretation of fairness. They got an extra 100,000 for their field house. But again, we didn't finish the project. And yeah, it's 10 individuals that hold. It's an unsecured loan actually, and so that has a pretty high interest rate. And so the other thing, and the other thing from my understanding is it limits what they can do in Westmoreland. They can't buy a lot of the things that other schools can. Even schools that have a lot of debt can spend a lot more money because they're locally they're supported financially with greater means than at Westmoreland. So they're pretty strapped. They're paying this thing, and it would. I think there's again. I think it's a unique situation. It's well, I don't. I think we can reimburse them, and it won't be there won't be a question of fairness if you ask me.
Mr. Evans?
Yeah, just to summarize, the whole point of me putting this resolution and putting it out there really on Facebook on Friday was to solicit these conversations that y'all had with your different quarterback clubs and booster clubs. That was 100% the reason for me putting it out there like that. So I'm glad you guys came prepared tonight so where we actually have this conversation. Because to me, do we have a resolution? Not 100%, but I feel like it was progress and we had a good conversation. So hopefully we can get more feedback when we come back to vote and actually look at this. So that was 100% the point. And so thank you for doing your work. I appreciate it.
Anything else? All right, we've got 3 minutes. We've got one more item on the agenda. So I'm going to go to that item, which I can't see right now. And if anybody has any comments in the next 120 seconds, feel free, Mr. Evans.
I just want to make sure, because I looked up all these other counties and everything. There's been some discussion about us accepting, it's one of them to accept, let's see, make sure real quick. I'll accept the will of the majority vote in all cases and give support to the resulting action. We did not come up with that up here. I want to make that very clear. That is from TSBA.
Yeah, so that's verbatim from TSBA, but that is part of what this discussion is. If y'all don't like that wording, you can change it.
We did not, as a board, write that. It is in multiple other counties, so I just want that to be clear to the public.
Thank you.
Yeah, I definitely think that'll be the issue that you know, just the wording of that, I think from everybody's side. I mean, there's some things that, you know, I don't know.
I got you. And I think the intention behind it is not to say that when the board votes, everybody just like stands up and applauds and has but it's the idea that, I think as Mr. King said at the last meeting, when you make a decision as a board, you know, you consider that issue dead and you move on. So anyway, less than 60 seconds, Mr. King.
Yeah, I was just saying, so the board policy that as presented actually, I think three of these are actually lifted right from the New York State Boards Association. So we didn't write hardly anything there. So I guess you all went back and just consolidated what we came up with and found them already written. I don't want to say plagiarized, but they're actually word for word from the New York School Board Association's norms. So
I actually think those came from Ohio, but we just put in what wording we had that we handed out to give you guys a jumping off point. So again, you guys don't like the way they're worded. They're your norms, so we'll talk about it. We can change them.
Perfect. All right. Anybody else? All right. 9 o'clock meeting adjourned. All right. There we go.